Hello, everyone. Welcome to the pre-show of today's N10-007 Network Plus Study Group. Hi, everybody. Hello, chat room. We've got about 10 minutes before we get started, so if you're here live, settle in, grab a cool beverage. If you are watching this on the replay, well, I guess you could fast forward 10 minutes, but then you'd miss all of this, whatever this is. Let's do a quick check. Cameras look good. We're recording down here with the Cylon. See, I'm going back and forth. Is it Cylon or is it Kit? It's neither, really, because it goes in a circle. So I'm not sure what that would be. But I call them my Cylons. And then we've got stream going up here. That looks good. Hi, chat room. Hey, everybody. How you been? It's been a week. Less than, really. We had one of these last week on Thursday. And I got all my CEUs out, so I'm feeling pretty good about myself just as an individual. That's the important thing. Nobody's waiting on a CEU email. But we've got all Network Plus today. It's we're back into the Wednesday schedule. So today is Network Plus. A week from today is Security Plus, the 601. So come back for that. You haven't even left here yet. What am I saying? Stay for this. We'll worry about next week. We would like you to come back next week, though. Hello, everybody in the chat room. Hello, Canada and Alabama and Miami. On Coyote, welcome. Or we're stuck on the big curve of the 826. I don't know what's happening there. Hello, Ireland. Welcome. Good to have you here. We've got a bunch of new questions. I don't even remember them. I wrote these questions last week, so it'll be new for all of us, I guess. I haven't even checked to see if I have the right questions up. Do I? Yes, I think I do. Well, we're going to find out, right? Hello, St. Vincent. A volcano erupting seems to me that there could be some challenges with that. Some interesting scenarios. Hello, Texas and Berlin and Baston. Welcome. Good to see you. Nice for you to be here. It is one of those study groups where we're just going to do 1 hour of Q&A, or I'll ask you questions for the first hour. I will spend my time asking you those questions. In the second hour, I open up the phone lines and I take questions from the chat room. So that's what we'll do. What else am I missing? I have been in this studio every waking moment for the last couple of weeks, just shooting video. This past week, I think I shot about 30 videos this past week. There have been a lot of videos shooting. So if I look a little like I belong here, if I look all settled in, this is just the normal spot for me lately. It's kind of the normal spot for me all the time, but usually the doors are open, the lights are off. I'm writing something, maybe in a book. But when you're shooting video, it's just constant. It's just all the time you're in front of the camera. You've got the lights on. You're talking to the camera. So it's one of those. So there we go. That's the normal view that will be on the videos. So we'll get there once we get to that point. But I've got, how many videos I got left? I'm doing the Security Plus course now, so I probably have another 30 videos to do. It's not, when you consider the entire course is 156 videos or so. I think that's right. It's huge. It's the biggest course ever for our CompTIA Security Plus. So that is coming to an end. I feel pretty good about it. I've got we're almost at 70% done. So that's really, really more than 70 if we only have 30 left. I'm at 65% edited, like released. So a lot of the videos that I've shot over this last week, you've not seen yet. I still have to edit all of that. I'm just trying to get video in the can because that's the hardest. It's not the hardest part. It's really the easiest part of the process, but it's the most tedious part of the process. It's not even that tedious. It's not the right term either. It's very time consuming. It's a time consuming part of the process, but not as time consuming as writing the course. So it's a plus or minus kind of thing. So today we have multiple choice based questions. We have performance based questions for Network Plus, or at least one of them, a performance based question. Hello, Virginia. Good to see you here. Thanks for visiting. Hello, Kuala Lumpur and England. Welcome, UK. Good to have you here. There's Minnesota. Thank you for being here. Houston is here. I'm going to scroll up a bit. Houston, Texas. Oh boy, we've got plenty to go through. How much time we have? About 4.5 minutes before we get started. Hello, Bama. Good to see you. New York's here. Puerto Rico, welcome. Good to have you here. I haven't been there in a while. I need to get back there. What a great place. Hey, Lauderdale. Good to see you. Montreal. Bonjour. Thank you for being here. There's Vegas. Hello, Las Vegas. Welcome. It's all Network Plus today until we hit the first hour. For the call-in and the Q&A after the second hour, then I'll take any question about anything. I probably won't answer any question about anything, but we'll take the question, if anything. I do give CEU credit during the first hour of the study group. I'll explain how you can earn 1 hour of a webinar category CEU. So you can listen in for that. Near Las Olas, downtown, Fort Lauderdale. Very nice. Down near the Hollywood, Fort Lauderdale area. We've got, and there was, I can't even remember the name of the club when I used to go to clubs down there on US 1 between the airport and downtown Lauderdale. There was this club, and there would be live acts that would come, and I saw Was Not Was live in Lauderdale. Oh, everybody walked the dinosaur. I wish I could remember the name of that place. Someone will remember. Mrs. Professor Messer will remind me later. Hello, Denton, Texas, and Chicago, and New Orleans, and Nepal, and South Africa, and Germany. Welcome. The exam voucher discount does not apply to the Dominican Republic. I'm so sorry. It is only for what CompTIA calls North America. I don't make these up. This is what I am restricted as to what they call it. So they call North America the U.S., Canada, Mexico, Puerto Rico, and Guam. Okay. So that's unfortunately, that's the discounts that I provide are only available there. Sorry about that. The nature of the system and the monies and how they do things, I don't know. It's a mystery. It's a mystery. That's just the restrictions that are placed upon me. So I'm so sorry. We got to fix this mic setup, don't we? Hello, Mississippi. Welcome. We got about 2 minutes to go. 2 minutes. 2 minutes to go. So there, we'll get there somewhere. Eventually. This is really the challenge, is making sure I have all of this ready to go. Is it cool enough in here? It is not. Hello, Romania. Welcome. Let's make it a little cooler in here. A little cooler. The goal today is all Network Plus. But like I said, in the after show, you're welcome to ask whatever you would like. Okay, I think that's got some cooling going on. Very nice. I do have some ideas on how you can get hired in tech with no experience. There's a video on my channel, how to get a job in IT with no experience, that might give you some ideas. Because it's more than just handing people your resume. There's a lot more to it. And the harder you work at those other things, you have to work hard on your resume, but there's other things you need to think about too. There's also on my channel a couple of videos on why your resume was rejected. 5 reasons your resume was rejected. And then I did an update to that, 5 more reasons your resume was rejected. So I do have my air conditioning on an IoT device on a separate network that is not connected to my production studio network. So I have a separate IoT VLAN. That is correct. Because there's some significant security concerns there. And having that separate at least gives me a little bit. Geez, this mic is going to be a thing, isn't it? But I've got that fixed tomorrow. It's time for a live stream, everybody. Top of the hour. Let's get Keynote going. Let's get a green light here, and let's get things started, shall we? I think it's time. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the April 2021 Professor Messer Network Plus Study Group. This is our N10-007 study group, where I ask you questions that come directly from the N10-007 exam objectives, and you can answer them live and online. We will all answer them together. We'll see the answers together. And then in the second hour, I open up the phone lines and I take questions from the chat room. So there's plenty of things that we will be able to go through, and a lot of things that are happening on the website right now. So I think I've got a few of these that we can walk through. But before we do that, let me tell you how you can participate today. Pop open a new browser window, and you can go to this URL, professormesser.com/QA. That will take you to a question that's already waiting for you. And you just stay on that page. I will change the questions behind the scenes. You don't have to touch anything. Now, if you would prefer having all of these questions in app form on your mobile device, there is an app for this. It is the Socrative Student app. You can download that from your favorite app store. It will ask you for a room name. The room name is Professor Messer, all one word. So make sure you spell that right, PROFESSORMESSER. Now, if you do that, there will be a question waiting for you. So follow those instructions, and you'll see a question that asks, a user is not able to log into an Active Directory network. Which of the following would be the most likely reason for this issue? Would it be a duplex mismatch? Would it be an incorrect date and time? Would it be that DHCP is enabled? Would it be that STP is configured? Or is it that USB interfaces are disabled? Now, if you know the answer, do not answer in the chat room. That's our standing rule. Do not put any information in there. Don't put any hints in the chat room either. Not a good idea either. So what you want to be able to do is go to professormesser.com/QA. There we go. Put it right there on the screen. And you can answer the question there. It's a great place to go. This is a question from last month. So if that looks familiar, this is our rewind question of the month. We will come back to that question in just a moment. So stand by for that answer. Thanks for being here on the study group. We do this N10-007 Network Plus study group every month. But of course, we have other study groups that we do during the month for A+, for Security Plus. You can always check the calendar of the website to find out when the next live event is going to be. Of course, I have new videos coming out all the time. I think in this last week, we probably published 15 videos. There's a lot happening right now. You can always be updated on that by going to my YouTube channel, professormesser.com/YouTube. There's also a weekly Network Plus pop quiz question. I post those to Twitter at professormesser.com/Twitter, and I post them to Instagram if you would like your question with a pretty picture, professormesser.com/Instagram. Today, we're going to talk about the N10-007. This was an exam that was released on March the 1st of 2018. I do say that the estimated retirement date is the first quarter of 2022, although I have heard recently it could be as late as June of 2022, according to people who have spoken with CompTIA. I don't have direct knowledge of that. That is one of those that people ask about all the time. I expect the N10-008 exam to probably be released in the September timeframe. So later this year, which means if you're studying right now, here in April 2021, you have at least a year plus to pass this exam. This is the exam you should be studying for right now. This is the one you should be working on. This is the one you should be earning your Network Plus certification from. So keep doing what you're doing. Do not wait for another exam that may not be coming at a certain time in the future. That does nobody any good. It's always good to get the certification, put it in your pocket, and use that. That's much more valuable than you waiting around for a cert. To earn your Network Plus certification, you have to take an exam that is 90 minutes long and has a maximum of 90 questions. You might get fewer than that. The score you need to earn is on a scale from 100 to 900, and the score is 720. This consists of both multiple choice questions and performance-based questions, and we will go through both of those on this today. Hey, Neo in the chat room, thank you so much for the love. Neo's using the super chat function, has donated $5. I appreciate that. And people have asked about this all the time. You're asking about CCNA and being able to recertify or at least get certified in the CCNA. I don't know that the CCNA has a CertMaster CE requirement. I've never seen one. For those not familiar with CertMaster CE, it's a way to renew your certification with CompTIA. I don't think Cisco makes it so easy. I think they really require you to go through all of the normal paces that most people do in earning their CEUs. I don't want you to retake the test either, but there are ways around it, and we can look at that in the after show too. That'd be a fun thing to look through, just to get a feel for some of those things. Don't forget that my Network Plus course is available for you to watch for free on the website. You are more than welcome to go to the website and watch every single video live and stream it right there. Some of you, though, would like an offline version of this, and there is an offline version available that you can download both in video form, audio form. I have course notes. There is an exam hacks ebook. We'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But all of this is together. You can purchase the entire package and download it and have it on your machine by visiting professormesser.com/netsuccess and get my Network Plus Success Bundle. Just another thing that might help you in the course of doing what you're doing. And Caesar Hernandez in the chat, thank you so much for your donation too, $4.99. I appreciate that. Showing some love today. We do appreciate that on the live stream. And thank you for everything you do as well. There is, of course, a replay of this live video replay thing that we do available on YouTube. You can go back and look at all of the study groups that we do. They are on the YouTube archive. And there's also a podcast version of this available as well. You can find it at professormesser.com/podcast. Who knew? This podcast version, if you have a podcast listening program, it will just automatically download into your device. And wherever you happen to be, you can just hit play and you're able to listen in on the latest study group. So very useful to have that there. Feel free to have a look, professormesser.com/podcast. There is also, if you look at the YouTube video replay, you'll notice in the video description that every single part of this study group has a timestamp. Now, it's not on the one right now because we're doing this live, but if you're watching this about a day later, you'll notice that everything has been timestamped. That is thanks to my marketing manager, Lori, who is having to watch this replay. Hi, Lori. This is the only time I really get to say hi in a live stream to Lori. If you'd like to say hi to Lori as well and tell her you appreciate those, she watches the chat go by when she is doing the replay. So it's another way to kind of keep track of what's going on. And this is a great way to find what you're looking for in any of these replays. You can go back years and click exactly what you would like. Very useful that. Neo, thank you again for another $5 donation. Glad you recertified your Security Plus today for another 3 years. You've locked it in. That is fantastic. For those of you that have never used CertMaster CE, you can update your certification in really just a few hours. And Neo in the chat room, if you want to put in, how long did it take you to go through your CertMaster CE and do that? I'm just interested to know, just curious. I say it's a few hours. I think CompTIA says it's like 3 to 6 hours, but I think most people go through it pretty quick. Another one of those things that might help. And the super chat is on the YouTube chat feature. It should be right there at the top. You have options there for the super chat, and we do appreciate that as well. There's also new things on the site. Here's a new thing. People have asked about this over and over and over again, is that it would be nice to have vouchers available on the Professor Messer website, and now there is. This is brand new. We have vouchers that you can get that are discounted from what you would pay full price on the Pearson VUE website. So this is another way to first save you some money, which is kind of nice, is to have that functionality there. But you can go almost anywhere and get discounted vouchers. I wanted to give you a little something extra if you got the discounted vouchers from me. And if you do that, I will give you what I think is probably the most requested product that you can't buy by itself on my site, which is my Exam Hacks ebook. This is a set of, I think it's about 14 life hacks on taking your CompTIA exam. It's not about Network Plus or Security Plus or A+. It's about the exam process, because there are things you can do while you are taking the exam that might score you extra points. And it's just in the exam process. So I document what those are in my Exam Hacks ebook, because I think I've taken 30 different industry certification exams through the years, maybe more than that. Maybe it's up to 40 or 50. I really should count that to have all of those things. But it is very, very useful to have that capability of knowing what you should be doing during the exam. So if you get the voucher from my site, you get that exam hack for free. Just throw it in there so that you have yet another thing that I think can help you. And of course, all of you need a voucher before you go sign up for your certification. So this would be a great way to support the site as well. And no money out of your pocket. In fact, discounted out of your pocket and helping the site at the same time. What a great plus or minus from this. So you can have a look at that at professormesser.com/vouchers. Let's now move back to that question I asked you earlier, which was that a user is not able to log into an Active Directory network. Which of the following would be the most likely reason for this issue? Would it be duplex mismatch, an incorrect date and time, DHCP is enabled, STP is configured, or USB interfaces are disabled? And if we look at the results, you can see that 68% of you say that it is an incorrect date and time is what you ran into. 14% said a duplex mismatch. 9%, almost double digits, say that DHCP is enabled. And only 5% said STP is configured. And only 3% said USB interfaces are disabled. Well, that's a pretty strong number. It's almost 70% of you have said incorrect date and time. And if you've ever done anything relating to Kerberos or really cryptography in general, then you've probably seen that it's something that date and time is pretty important. We, especially with something like Kerberos, where you are logging into a network, you are being handed effectively a cryptographic ticket that is only good for a certain amount of time. So there has to be at least some level of synchronization. Now, we're not talking about it being second type synchronization. It just has to be within plus or 5 minutes of each other. So it doesn't have to be crazy. And you can adjust that in Active Directory as well, but that's a pretty good number to be able to do that. Kerberos really relies on that timestamp. So if you are connecting to an Active Directory network, which uses Kerberos under the scenes, and you're not able to connect for some reason, check your date and time. See if the clock on your local machine is set properly. It could be that it is not. And if that's the case, it's not going to let you into the network. So that is our rewind question of the month. And that should at least give you a perspective of things you need to know for the exam. Now that we're in, we can answer these questions. We're online. We're able to answer it. I now have for you a performance-based question. As many of you know, the first new question of every month is something you've never seen before. It's a brand new question, performance-based question, and it's something that is not multiple choice. This is what you get when you start the exam, is you get a handful of these types of questions that are not multiple choice. This last one we did was multiple choice. You had 5 choices, and you could have chosen from any of those. In fact, you could have got this one right just by guessing. There is a percentage there, and 20% guess would have gotten you the correct answer. But on a performance-based question, there's no guessing. That's because this is a matching question. It's a fill in the blank. Maybe they put you to a command prompt and ask you to perform a particular function. But it is a question that is going to ask you a number of different things. And you have to know how to use and manipulate the screen and move things around to be able to answer the question. Now, the important part to remember with this is that it's still the same information you get from the exam objectives. We're not asking you new things. It's just a different way to ask you what you already know. So I have a question for you that will ask you something brand new. And the thing that is brand new today, it's an OSI question, since a lot of you asked this one. This one is a fill in the blank on the website. And it's kind of hard to, it's hard to see on my side. Maybe it looks better on your side. But I will step through all 5 of these different descriptions, and I want you to tell me what OSI layer would be most associated with each one of these descriptions. So let's start at the top. The first one is all encrypted email traffic uses TCP 993. What OSI layer are we talking about there? Second on our list, a web server requires authentication before allowing access. What OSI layer are we talking about there? Third on our list, a repeater is used to extend the length of a fiber run. Our fourth description, the MAC address of a laptop is listed in a switch forwarding table. And lastly, an imaging server's IP address is 10.10.22.5. So there is an OSI layer on each of these that I would like you to be able to answer. Put into the list, and you can just list it out. If you think they are all layer 1, you can put 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and that's all I need to say. That's all that needs to be on the screen. And of course, this is a kind of a fill in the blank. We're not going to be able to tally these results, but we will go through each one of these. So for those of you listening on the podcast again, the OSI layers most associated with the following descriptions: All encrypted email traffic uses TCP 993. A web server requires authentication before allowing access. A repeater is used to extend the length of a fiber run. The MAC address of a laptop is listed in a switch forwarding table, and an imaging server's IP address is 10.10.22.5. Now, if you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in that answer. You do not want to put answers in the chat room. You don't want to put any hits in the chat room. You just want to figure out the details of this. Maybe you know what it is. There is one, folks in the chat room thinking, I'm not sure I got this option in there. There's one of these that kind of threw you off, which in fact, we'll talk about how it could be more. Some of these could be more than one. At least one of these could be more than one. But hopefully you see where I'm going after with some of these requests. OSI obviously is clearly spelled out at the beginning of this. In fact, we use OSI model type conversations all the time in networking and IT security to describe things like this. If you're trying to describe to someone else where you think a problem may be occurring, being able to explain what OSI layer you think is not working properly can really help. And it's a common language that technologists can use to communicate with each other. And we use it all the time. I know it's hard to understand it if you've never used it before. And that's sort of the situation you're in. If you've just started studying Network Plus and you've never seen the OSI model before, this is a little bit crazy. So maybe this question will help you with some of that. Let's go through the answers of this one and see how you did. The first one on our list was all encrypted email traffic uses TCP port 993. And that was really your key, is seeing the TCP there. It really should already tell you, oh, that's a layer 4 communication, because now we're working with those transport protocols. We're working with UDP, TCP, IPX, SPX. Most of you have no idea what I'm talking about. But those protocols are extremely important. They sit just above the IP layer, and they are really at that layer 4. It's a very important part of layer 4. And when we talk about firewalls making their forwarding decisions or making their dispositions based on a layer 4 value, we're talking about a TCP or a UDP port number. Next on our list, a web server requires authentication before allowing access. Now, this is the one I think some in the chat room said, oh, we could go different places. But I would accept on this one, technically there's authentication in here, but also if there's authentication, we're probably typing something in at the screen. So I say this is layer 7. But I think there's an argument you could make that you could say, no, that's layer 6. I don't know if you could really make a good argument that that's layer 5, but you could certainly say it's layer 6. I think layer 7 is probably a good one. I think that's probably a better answer, since authenticating to a web server, if you've ever had to type in a username and password on a web server, that's you on a screen, it's on a browser, you're typing in a username and password. So I would accept 6 or 7, though. I think if you said 6, you were probably even thinking more detailed about the encryption, decryption process under the scenes and what authentication would require. So I'd take either one of those. I think that's good, because I made the description just a little bit vague, just a wee bit vague. And I think that's fine. If I really wanted to, probably should have spent a couple extra seconds on it and nailed down whether it was 6 or 7. But this is the time to think about, to expand on these questions, to figure out where we can look at the questions differently. In fact, getting it wrong is a fine thing when we're in this study group. Just don't get it wrong on your exam. Next on our list, a repeater is used to extend the length of a fiber run. Well, if you're using a repeater, you're at layer 1. The repeater doesn't have any forwarding decision, any smarts in it. There's nothing in there that has it making some type of decision. In fact, the decision is, if signal goes into this interface, send the signal back out this other interface. That's it. That's one of those where it makes it very easy to know that that's really layer 1. We're dealing with the signal. We're not dealing with MAC addresses, IP addresses, port numbers, encryption, sessions, applicate. There's none of that. We're really just dealing with signal. And if you're just dealing with signal, you're just dealing with layer 1. Next on our list is the MAC address of a laptop is listed in a switch forwarding table. The MAC address was our key word there. Anytime we see MAC address, and we know switches use MAC addresses to be able to make their forwarding decisions, well, those would be layer 2. Layer 2 is that MAC address layer. It's that switching layer. Anytime we're making a decision based on a MAC address, that is a data link control address, and it's that data link layer of the OSI model. And lastly, an imaging server's IP address is 10.10.22.5. There's an IP address, plain as day. That means that's layer 3. Whenever we talk about routers, routers are layer 3 devices because routers make their forwarding decision based on a destination IP address. IP address is layer 3. So if we're talking to someone else and we say, we think it's a layer 3 problem, oh, I should look at the IP address, the subnet mask, the default gateway. Those are layer 3 issues. And we can work through those to be able to figure out the details of it. So hopefully that will help you too to be able to work through those. I think that is those 5 answers are what we were looking for. Then all encrypted email using TCP 993 is layer 4. A web server requiring authentication before allowing access is layer 7 or 6. A repeater is used to extend the length of a fiber run, layer 1. The MAC address of a laptop listed in the switch forwarding table is layer 2. And an imaging server's IP address is 10.10.22.5. That indeed is layer 3. Now, the question, of course, this comes up often, is how do you know if you get partial credit for this? Because you might be able to get 3 of these right and 2 of these wrong. So do you get some type of credit? And the answer, the answer that comes directly from CompTIA is maybe or maybe not. That's how they answered it on their frequently asked questions on their website, is they might give you partial credit. They might not give you partial credit. So the key is just not to worry about it, to just do the best you can. The final score is going to be what the final score is going to be. And hopefully this is one you did pretty well. And if you didn't, make sure you go back and look at the OSI model. It's from the N10-007 videos, section 1.2. And the video is understanding the OSI model. That might help you out with this. And I give some real world examples in there. We capture some packets. I show you the details. It's all in that video. Feel free to have a look. Well, let's shift gears away from the performance-based questions, and let's go to another multiple-choice-based question, but not until I thank the abstract in the chat room for your $5 donation. Thank you so much in the super chat in YouTube. We really do appreciate it. Thank you for the love. Let's do now we're going to shift away from performance-based question. We'll do a multiple-choice-based question. And this multiple-choice-based question asks, a network administrator is connecting 2 devices using twisted pair copper cables transmitting at 10 gigabits per second. Which of the following Ethernet standards would describe this connection? Would that be 10G base T? Would it be 1000 base SX? Would it be 1000 base T? Would it be 100 base TX? Would it be 1000 base LX? That's a lot of zeros and T's and X's. Let's go through that one more time. A network administrator is connecting 2 devices using twisted pair copper cables transmitting at 10 gigabits per second. Which of the following Ethernet standards would describe this connection? Would it be 10G base T, 1000 base SX, 1000 base T, 100 base TX, or 1000 base LX? One of those is going to be the right answer. If you think you know what it is, please no answers in the chat room. We want to go to that link right there at the bottom of the screen, professormesser.com/QA, and lock in your answer. See what it happens to be there. If you are ever working through the details of these questions, some of these you may be able to get rid of the ones you know it is not. So maybe you'll be able to figure out the details. One of the things I think that's nice about this also is that I think this is all of the standards you have to know for the exam. Older versions of this exam, I think you had to know 10 different Ethernet standards. Most of the time, these 10 different Ethernet standards are not even standards that we use normally in just normal operation. I think they just threw everything on the exam. Now they've shrunk it down into really the versions of Ethernet that we really use the most. So that's where I would go if you were trying to figure out the details of this one, is where does this come from? Where does it go? How do we deal with it? See if you happen to know what those standards are. And each one of those are real standards. I didn't make any of these up. So they probably do look familiar, is understanding what is really there on the differences between all of those. Hopefully you're familiar with some of those standards. It will really help you on this one. So we'll see how it goes. So let's start at this and we'll figure out the details of this answer. Let's see if you were able to answer this one without Googling it. There's no Googling. I don't think I have to say that, but you should know that. You're not going to be able to Google on your exam anyway, especially if you put anything in the exam is, of course, going to be one of those situations where you got to have a clean desk. So one of those is never going to be the case where you can use third-party tools to be able to answer these. Let's see how you did with this one, which is a network administrator is connecting two devices using twisted pair copper cables transmitting at 10 gigabits per second. Which of the following Ethernet standards would describe this connection? Would it be 10G base T, 1000 base SX, 1000 base T, 100 base TX, or 1000 base LX? So hopefully you'll be able to know what that happens to be. Let's see how you did. Well, 83% of us, that's a pretty strong majority, say 10G base T. We have 11% that said 1000 base T. That's pretty close to those two. And then everything else, it's a three-way tie for third at 2% apiece at 1000 base SX, 100 base TX, or 1000 base LX. Well, let's talk about running 10 gig over twisted pair copper. Is that even possible? Can you do that? Absolutely, you can do that. Use twisted pair cabling and 10G base T. It's a standard from 2006. It's been around that long. It sure has. It is a type of cabling on this twisted pair that is going to be running very fast. It runs at 500 megahertz. So if you're running gigabit Ethernet, you may be familiar that the frequency that is in use, the amount of ups and downs in that wire going back and forth is only 125 megahertz in gigabit Ethernet. For 10 gig, we take it up another level. Now, there's also differences in the type of cabling you would use for this as well. Category 6 gets you at least 55 meters on 10 gig Ethernet, but most people that are running 10 gig are probably going to run Cat 6A, the A is for augmented, to be able to run a full 100 meters. And of course, Cat 7's better than 6, right? So Cat 7 will also do 100 meters on that. So you have some options at least. If you happen to have Cat 6 in the wall already, maybe it's less than 55 meters and you can plug it in, everything works great. Or if you have to run some new wire, you may have to run 6A or 7 to be able to have that. So pretty useful to know that difference in those standards. And of course, if you're going to be working through these standards, important for you to know that the cable in the wall thing is a normal issue. You walk into a building, you just bought the place, you go in there, there's cable, it's already run. Can we use this cable? This is one of those questions. So those of you that knew that 10 gig Ethernet is that 10G base T standard, got it absolutely right. That is the correct answer. The 83% of you, well, it's 83%. It had to be right, didn't it? I think so. 11% of you said 1000 base T, which is 1 gig over twisted pair, not 10 gigabits per second, only 1 gigabit per second. Seems like it's 1,000. Well, it is. It's 1,000 megabits per second. And that's where that came from. And then, of course, 1000 base SX and 1000 base LX are 2 gigabit standards with fiber, both SX for the short haul and LX for the long haul. And then you've got 100 base TX, which is the 100 megabit per second. So the only thing that it could have been is answer A, 10G base T, and 83% of you got that right. Clay in the chat room, thank you for the $5 donation. And Koza Mikoza for the £5 donation. Thank you so much. There was another one that came through too. Did I miss it? I think I did. That earlier on, it went right by me, Christian. Thank you for your also £5 donation. See, I didn't miss it. It was up there, but I forgot to say anything about it, which was very rude of me. I apologize to be able to do that. Most often, SX is multi-mode and LX is single mode, but it's not necessarily always the case. There are flavors of fiber you can run that for the short haul and the long haul that are both multi-mode and single mode. So the medium is very different. And fortunately, the Network Plus exam doesn't get into that level of minutia with the standards. It's really more about understanding what type of medium it uses, the name of the standard, and about the distances. And I think once you know that, you're fine. I think that's really the only thing. Because I think there isn't part of the LX standard, 1000 base LX, I think can run over both single mode and multi-mode, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to look at my standard to confirm that, but that it is not stuck on that in any case. So it's another one of those things to look at. Those 5 standards are the ones you need to know. But as long as you know what's in my video to be able to do that, the video is, I don't think you can see it here. It's the N10-007 2.1 Ethernet standards video. It's all in there, and you'll be able to see those and work through them. Let's do another multiple choice question. This next question asks, a network administrator needs to make a change to a remote router configuration from a public Wi-Fi hotspot. Which of the following would provide the most secure connection? Would it be WPS, Telnet, SSH, FTP, or IMAP? A network administrator needs to make a change to a remote router configuration from a public Wi-Fi hotspot. Which of the following would provide the most secure connection? Would that be WPS, Telnet, SSH, FTP, or IMAP? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. Lock in your answer. As always, no answers in the chat room. Please, no hints in the chat room. Figure out the details of what might be there. Maybe you do know this one. Maybe you've done this. Maybe some of you have made router configuration changes remotely from a public Wi-Fi hotspot, and you've had to use one of these technologies to make it happen. Who knows? We will find out shortly when we find the answer to this. And of course, no Googling the answers. No Googling. That's hard to say, but don't do that. If you're ever in a case where you're taking your exam at home, you'll notice the rules are you have to kind of keep everything at arm's distance. You have to completely clean your desk. That's why I can't take the exam at home, because I cannot clean my desk. So I have to go somewhere else to take the exam. And that's one of the things. I'm in Florida, so we can go somewhere else and take the exam. Pretty much open for business at this point. So we're slowly getting back into the mode of things, aren't we? And that's why it's just easier for me. Some of you love taking your exams at home, and I think if that's something that fits where you are able to use and have a workspace that works well with CompTIA, and you're happy doing that, absolutely do that. It's a very great option to be able to do that. And when you get your voucher and you sign up for your exam, you can take it in either place. So it's completely up to you to be able to do this. So makes it easy. Let's see how we did with this one. A network administrator needs to make a change to a remote router configuration from a public Wi-Fi hotspot. Which of the following would provide the most secure connection? Is it WPS, Telnet, SSH, FTP, or IMAP? 90% of you, 90, say SSH. Probably didn't fool anyone with that one. 8% say it's WPS. Well, so I did fool a couple people. 2% said Telnet. Nobody said FTP. Nobody said IMAP. Everybody said SSH, which means some of you have done this before. SSH is a great way to configure a remote terminal connection over a secure, encrypted, we call it channel. It's a secure connection. That secure connection ensures that if you're SSHing into, call it SSHing, we do. If you SSH into that device, then everything that you send back and forth will be encrypted. It's a relatively strong encryption, so you can feel pretty comfortable that your information is going to be protected. So nobody will be able to see your login. You won't be able to see your username, your password, none of those things. It is all available through Secure Shell SSH. You would not want to use Telnet. Telnet's what we had before SSH. Telnet is effectively the same thing. It's terminal communication, but it's not encrypted. It's in the clear. And if anybody is capturing those packets, they'll know immediately what your username and password is, and that's not what you want to do either. So make sure you're familiar with SSH. And if you're not using SSH, you should do that and be able to do it. Which means the percent of you that answered C, SSH, you got that one absolutely right. I was just talking about taking your exam at home. How'd they know you're not cheating at home? Because they are going to watch you through your camera and listen to you through your microphone the whole time, and they record it. So yeah, they're watching you. They're seeing everything you're doing. It's not creepy at all. No, it really isn't. They're watching you when you're in a testing center, so they're just watching you at home. So, but that is very important. If you go and look at some of the things that people have I've experienced with this at home. Sometimes people have gotten up for whatever reason. The doorbell rang and they got up and walked out of the camera range. You are automatically failed. If there is someone walks into the room and they see them on the camera, they'll fail you. If they hear something going on that's suspicious and they don't like that too much, they will fail you. And you have to pay again to take the exam. So that's one of those that is a little bit of a challenge. Is no bathroom breaks. Nope, can't get up, can't go anywhere, can't move out of the view of the camera, or you fail. So it's slightly more intense than going to a testing center. Fire alarm goes off. I guess they're going to have to deal with that in whatever way they deal with that. Obviously, you would have to leave, but perhaps they can give you a credit for that one. That's why they record everything, so they can go back. You can send them a note and say, the fire alarm, what was it supposed to do? They go, okay. Maybe they'll be able to work something out on that for all of those. Looking away from the screen, probably not. Putting your hand in front of your mouth, they don't like that. It's all about making the environment one where people can't cheat. That's really what that's about. So, Marco in the chat room, thank you for the €5 donation, or €5 donation. I'm sorry. And more than happy to stream. Thank you. For After Network Plus, do you go to CCNP or do you do CCNA? I think Cisco is probably a good next step. Stick around for the after show. We'll talk all about that one because I think that's a really common question and one we should absolutely talk about pluses and minuses on. Right now, let's do another question since we're here and doing this. This question on our list asks, this is a good one. The question asks, a user authenticates from a laptop using a username, password, and a smart card. Which two authentication factors are in use? Good question. Is it something you are? Is it something you have? Is it something you know? Is it somewhere you are? Or is it something you do? Those are the good questions. A user authenticates from a laptop using a username, password, and a smart card. Which two authentication factors are in use? Is it something you are, something you have, something you know, somewhere you are, or something you do? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. See if you happen to know what it is. Again, no answers in the chat room, no questions in the chat room. You'll be able to figure out what these are. I think this is one you have to break this down because I'm asking for two answers. We don't often do that in these questions, but occasionally on your exam, you will have questions on your exam that ask you for two answers or even three. They'll tell you how many, just like I did with this question. So that's one of those. It's very easy to break this out and be able to see the differences of this. We'll break it down. We'll figure out the details in just a moment. I'll explain to you how I got this question and how we did it too. In the chat room, JCIT, thank you for the $5 donation. In Canadian, $5 donation. What is that? What is that now? What does that map out to? I need to have a chart in front of me. Regardless, I appreciate it. As some of you know, Mrs. Professor Messer has family in Canada. She is sort of Canadian. It's a long story. But her mother and father were Canadian. She is not Canadian. We'll figure that one out in a moment. She's from the United States citizen. But that's the way. But we have such a close tie to Canada. So it's always nice to see the folks up in Canada and see what's going on. That's $4.30 US, and I will take it. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for the love. This question is one with more than one answer, and it's kind of hard because we don't see on this question the exact answer, but let's step through it step by step. We'll figure out the details. The question again was a user authenticates from a laptop using a username, password, and a smart card. Which two authentication factors are in use? Is it something you are, something you have, something you know, somewhere you are, or something you do? Let's see how you answered this one. This is one that is not going to measure it out exactly, but I think we'll have a pretty good idea based on the answers we have coming in. 50% say something you have, 45% say something you know, 4% said something you are, 2% said something you do, 0% said somewhere you are. Doesn't the smart card know where you are? No, it does not. I'm just spoofing with it. The two we were really most interested in, let's talk about the first one, which is your password. Your password is something you know because you know it's in your head. It's in your brain. Nobody else knows your password. Hopefully it's not written down anywhere. So otherwise someone would know your password. That it wouldn't be something you know. I guess it still would be something you know, but it would also be something someone else knows too, which is not what you're shooting for with authentication factors. But a password is a very good example of something you know. Also, and I didn't put this in the question, but very often when you use a smart card, you also have to put in a personal identification number for that smart card. That just prevents someone from stealing your smart card and using it. And I didn't put that as part of the question primarily because you already had to put the password in, and both a personal identification number and a password is something you know. So you would be using something you know twice in that particular scenario. Very useful to break that down and have those. Let's see how the next one worked out. So something you know is certainly one of those answers. The other answer is the smart card itself. And you have the smart card. It's something you have with you. That is a very common type of factor. I use this factor all the time with mine, but it's not a smart card I'm using, and it's not a USB token that I'm using. I'm using some of these pseudo-random number generators on my phone and on my desktop to be able to give me a set of randomized, random-looking numbers that I would use for authenticating. So that is something that I do use constantly, something you have. So you're not going to be able to get into my my PayPal account. You're not going to be able to get into my bank account because I have it all set up with hardware tokens or software tokens in my case. I don't carry around hardware tokens, but I do have plenty of software that is used based on that. Now, if you use some of these software tokens, be sure that you have the serial number or the backup code in case something happens to that. It will save you so much time later on. Because if you don't have it, a lot of organizations require you to send them identification. It has to go through a verification process. It's a mess. So don't do that. You want to be sure you have the backup of those. So the two answers are the ones you chose, which are something you have, your smart card, and something you know, your password. So you've got at least those two authentication factors. Those factors are important to know. They come from section 4.2 for multi-factor authentication. There's a whole video on that. You can go through the entire thing for understanding a little more about what options are available for those. It might help you for what you're doing. Jared in the chat room, thank you for the $4.99 donation there. We really do appreciate those super chat donations. And thank you so much for that. A+ certified yesterday, and congratulations on that as well. And what's next? Are you working through the Network Plus? That'd be good to know as well. We have Kyle in the chat room, the $1.99 donation. Authentication is session layer, right? Well, I guess that would depend on the type of authentication and how it's being set up. Generally, authentication is a little above the session layer. Session layer is responsible for setting up the session and making sure the application can communicate properly, sort of like the application version of TCP, if you will. TCP being the network level of the session information. You can think of the session layer as being the application level version of that. So it's really not quite as complex as authentication would require, but there are portions of it there. This is why I think for OSI, you'll notice that we kind of squish together the layers 5, 6, and 7. They're sort of talked about as a single entity. And that's really because it's so hard to break those particular onion layers apart. They really are scrunched together pretty tightly. There are some nuances where you can kind of say, well, that one's more in layer 5 than layer 6 or layer 7. But that's one of those scenarios where at least you get a familiarity with where things fit in the OSI model. It's pretty important to be familiar with those for the exam, certainly. But you're not going to have any questions on your exam that will ask you to rationalize the differences between layer 5 and 6. You're probably not going to see that. Really focusing more on something that's very specific to all of those. So hopefully that can help you. If you answered B, something you have, and C, something you know, you got that one absolutely right. Well, we do these study groups because there's so much content on the Network Plus exam. And if you've ever looked through the exam, 101 videos on this certification course, 12 hours of content. That's a lot of watching, a lot of viewing, a lot of note-taking yourself. And one of the things that you may run into is just you don't have time to go through every video, or you don't have time to write down everything that's in every video. Well, that's okay, because I've already done it for you with my Network Plus course notes. These are course notes that you can get in either physical form, which is what I'm holding in my hand, which is just paper form. It's exactly the same whether you get the digital or the physical version. So the physical version is a book that you will get. The digital version, well, I have it right here. Thank you for asking. Here's the digital version, the way it looks. It's PDF. So it's the same information you would get in the book. It's just in a PDF form so that you can have all of that Network Plus information available to you in the course notes. All available on the website. You can have a look at this. The course notes are there. I should probably get rid of that so you can see how to get them. Go to the website and you can hit the menus to find it, or simply go to professormesser.com/NPCN for Network Plus course notes. And that will get you to a screen that will tell you all about the course notes and be able to figure out the details of this. So hopefully it can help you as well and work through those. Again, the chat room Neo, $5. We're already having the Cisco versus CompTIA battle in the chat room. Neo says the CCNA far better than Network Plus. Same cost, covers Cisco iOS, except it's not entry-level certification, is it? It's a sort of a next-level certification. So this is the problem we get into. We'll talk about in the after show about where does Network Plus fit and where does Cisco CCNA fit, and I'll explain to you why they are in no way, shape, or form something you can swap between one or the other. They have very specific needs and requirements for each one of them, and they fit differently depending on what you're trying to do with your career. And there may be times when you don't need Network Plus, maybe other times when you absolutely need Network Plus. And we'll tell you all about where those fit, because I have taken both of them, and I have in the past had both of them active. But that's one we could step through, and I'll give you a feel from my perspective anyway. And then you can tell me I'm wrong, which is fine too. I'm getting used to it. Hunter in the chat room, $5 donation. Thank you. Would you say I'm able to earn enough from your Core 1 Success Bundle to pass the A+ test? I think that's probably one of the best things you can get. Otherwise, I wouldn't put that Success Bundle together. But in the first video of every course, Network Plus, Security Plus, A+, I tell you exactly what I think you should have to be able to pass your exam, or at least to have the best possible chance of passing your exam. And I think that's all that we're looking for is, do I have everything I need to pass this exam? And I think it's a combination of different things. Getting as much as you can together is an important part of this. We'll talk about that in the after show as well. Right now, let's do another question because we have some time left in this first hour, and I will go through this next question. This is one that happened to me, so this might happen to you too. A user has pulled their desk away from the wall and has separated the twisted pair cabling from the RJ45 connector. Which of the following should be used to repair this connection? Would it be a loopback plug, a tone generator, a punch-down tool, a crimper, or an inductive probe? It's one of those, right? Is it a loopback plug, a tone generator, a punch-down tool, a crimper, or an inductive probe? If you think you know the answer, there's the link on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA. Lock in your answer. You'll be able to put in what you think the answer happens to be. As always, no answers in the chat room, no hints in the chat room. We don't want to think we know what it is already. We are going to figure this out and plug it in to your link there, professormesser.com/QA. It's a great link to go to. In fact, that's the one we use for all of these, is professormesser.com/QA. If you are watching this on the replay, that link is not available to you. You'll notice there's nothing happening there. Where's all this action that's going? It's all happening live. You have to be here live. So go to professormesser.com/calendar and find out when the next live event is going to be. We would love to have you here for our live events. So absolutely do that as you step through all of this. I think it might help you too to know to be here on the live event. I think it can be a lot of fun. We always do something associated with these. The course notes, you'll notice there's a link right under the pricing chart that gives you an option to switch to the physical hard copy version if you would like that. And if you get the hard copy version, you could download the soft copy, the digital version, for free while you're waiting for me to ship this to you. So that may be something to do. The answer is fire the incompetent employee. In this case, that would be me. I'm the one that pulled my desk away and I pulled it out. Sorry. So I'm firing myself. No more of this, pulling it out. And these types of problems happen all the time. So it's important to know how to fix them. Let's see how you did with this one. The question was, a user has pulled their desk away from the wall and has separated the twisted pair cabling from the RJ45 connector. Which of the following should be used to repair this connection? Would it be a loopback plug, a tone generator, a punch-down tool, a crimper, or an inductive probe? 79% say crimper. I don't think I'm in a case where I'm getting fewer than 70%, I think, today, and 78, almost 80% of you. 16% say I would use a punch-down tool. That's how you would fix it. You've got 3% that said loopback plug, 2% that said inductive probe, and 1% said a tone generator. Well, the key in this question was that we have separated the twisted pair from the RJ45 connector to have this here. So this is one of those cases where we need to know how to put those back together. How can we put the twisted pair cabling and the RJ45 connector back together with each other? And we'd use a crimper. That's what we would do. This is one that becomes useful. Can always have that there. You would connect your modular, your uncrypted modular connector. You plug it in, you put the cables in the right order, and you push that together and crimp them down to be able to have them all connect the RJ45 connector to the cable that is there itself. So useful to have that there. If you look at a modular connector that has not been crimped yet, it looks like this. So this is the modular connector. Notice that the copper that's on the back side of it, notice how it's sticking up. If you look at the Ethernet cable that you happen to have somewhere around, I know you've got one somewhere, but if you have one around, have a look at that. You'll notice it's completely smooth on the bottom. So before it's crimped, it's sticking up, which means those tines, those sharp tines on the bottom, are waiting for you to plug in that cable so it will push through the outer layer of that insulation and connect with the copper that is underneath. And when you do that, it looks like this. See now how these have been pushed down. They're no longer sticking out the top. And notice those pointy parts that we saw before are no longer sticking out either. They are pushed into the wire that is there and is completely flat. That's why you need one of these crimpers to be able to put that together. So hopefully that can help you as well with this. Neo, thank you again for the donation. You don't have to donate every time you want to put something in the chat, but you're more than welcome to. Maybe that should be a rule that you must donate to participate in the chat. When you're studying for Network Plus, you switch to Cisco because you noticed a 20% difference in content. It's probably a little more than 20% difference in content, but there is a little bit of overlap, and we'll talk about that in the exam or after the after show, because there's a little bit of overlap. 20%, I'll go with 20%. That's reasonable. It's that other 80% in Cisco that is a more advanced set of topics, and that's one of those that you really run into. That's quite a problem. It's the advanced part of it that makes it so much different than Network Plus. That means if you answered, 78% of you answered decrimper, you got that one absolutely right. That is the right answer. That's the tool you should use. That will stick your RJ45 connector or a new RJ45 connector back onto the cable that is there. You just now have to find where you put your blank RJ45s, your unused RJ45 connectors. You cannot take your old RJ45 connector and somehow undo it so it will fit again and be recrimped. You can't do that. Once you've crimped it, it's no good. You just got to cut it off, throw it away, and get a new one to put onto the end. So pretty useful to have that there. Crimper is the right answer. If you are watching this video for continuing education unit credit, and if you have no idea what I'm talking about, then this does not apply to you. But if it is something you recognize and you would like to earn a 1-hour webinar category CEU, I will send you an email that says you were here and you must have watched this, and I hereby bequeath you 1 hour of a webinar category CEU. And that is where, but you have to follow these instructions to do this. So this is the important part, is following the instructions. Go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. There is a Contact Us link at the top and the bottom. Click that Contact Us. It brings up a form. In that form, put your name, your email address. In the subject line, put that this is the April 2021 Network Plus study group or something close to that so I can recognize it. And on a line by itself in the body of the message, put the super secret code word of the month, crimper. Crimper is the super secret code word of the month. You can, of course, put anything else you would like into that message as well. I read through every single one of these, although I am not able to respond back to every single one of these. I do read through every single one. So you're more than welcome to put a whole story in there if you'd like to. Maybe not too much. I probably won't read past a certain amount, but you could certainly put a lot of things in there, and I do read through all of them. So the process again, the top or the bottom of the website, click Contact Us. Put in your name, your email. In the subject line, put that this is the April 2021 Network Plus Study Group, and then put the super secret code word on a line by itself that says Crimper. Crimper. That's what you want to do. That's how you do it. You will not send me an email to do that. If you send me an email, I'm just going to throw it away because you didn't follow the instructions. You have to follow the instructions. These instructions are the part where I know you were here and listening. So that's why you have to do it in that order. Plus, when you submit it the way I asked you to, it comes in a certain format, and I have a whole macro that kind of scrapes the screen and puts everything together so that it goes out quickly. That's the one I think that probably can help you too with these. So that is the process, and I'd be glad to send you that email. Probably takes me about, I don't know, about a week or so. That's about right to get it back to you. So we'll see. That works for you too. I have more questions. We can fit one more in, can't we? Even though we're here sort of at the top of the hour. But let's get one more question in before we are done. Our next question asks, a network administrator is upgrading the wireless network in a warehouse that operates at 54 megabits per second in the 5 gigahertz range. Which of the following would describe this network type? Would it be 802.1x, 802.11ac, 802.3, 802.11a, 802.1d? Got a few options there. There's a lot of 8s, a lot of 0s, and a lot of 2s in this answer. A network administrator is upgrading the wireless network in a warehouse that operates at 54 megabits per second in the 5 gigahertz range. Which of the following would describe this network type? Is it 802.1x, 802.11ac, 802.3, 802.11a, or 802.1d? All real things, by the way. All of those are actual things. I didn't make up any of those things. But you have to figure out which one it happens to be. If you think you know the answer, please do not answer in the chat room. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. I have to figure out the answers on this one. This is one I think that you probably should know. This is probably the most detail you would have to know about a certain set of wireless standards. But the key is knowing which standard it is. All of these are standards. They are the 802 set of standards from the IEEE. So go through and see if you happen to know what it happens to be. Maybe you do know what it happens to be. And if you're upgrading some wireless, you're going to need to know what it is because they're going to ask you what we need to upload, what we need to upgrade, and where we need to put it, and which one would you choose, and how fast does it need to go? And there's all these questions that need to be asked. So this is a good way to do it, is to ask those questions now. I think we'll have to figure it out and see which one of those. In the chat room, does getting the Network Plus renew your A Plus if it's expired? It does not, alas. If it's expired, it's expired. That's it. There's no getting it back once it's expired. You have to renew it before it is expired. You don't want to wait until it expires because it's not going to ever renew at that point. So we'll have to figure out the details of that. And have to figure out, I think, sort of where we can focus on the answer to some of these. Let's see how we did with this one, I think. How do you renew? Well, there's lots of ways to renew. And we can talk about that in the after show as well. But that is, the Network Plus would normally renew your A Plus if it was not expired. And once you pass your exam, it's good for 3 years. So sometime during that 3-year period, you have to renew it. And it will renew for another 3 years, at which time you have to renew it again. You just keep doing that. You never have to take the exam again unless it for some reason does expire. And then you'll have to take it again. That's one of those situations. Let's see how we did with this one. A network administrator is upgrading the wireless network in a warehouse that operates at 54 megabits per second in the 5 gigahertz range. Which of the following would describe this network type? 52% said 802.11a, 38% said 802.11ac, 8% said 802.1x, 2% said 802.1d, and 1% said 802.3. There's a lot there to be able to figure out what these happen to be. But 52% of you, that's a majority, I'm going with the majority, said 802.11a. But is it really 802.11a? 802.11a has been around since forever, I think. It's older than dirt. October of 1999, 802.11a. And I have worked with or in situations where it was a warehouse and they were running 802.11a. And you're not upgrading to 802.11a. You are upgrading the existing network that is running 802.11a. I was hoping the question would sort of give you that feel that was an older version of this standard. That's the real key to have this here. It does operate in the 5 gigahertz range. It was the very first, really came out with the 802.11a and 802.11b were effectively released simultaneously. And one was 5 gigahertz, the A version. One was 2.4 gigahertz, the B version. And we started to see a lot of A being rolled out because it was just so much faster at 54 megabits per second. The 802.11b was much slower. So we had to make a decision about frequency use versus speed of the traffic and figure out which one worked for us. It's just in a warehouse. It's wide open. You don't have to worry so much about absorption. So it's perfect for a warehouse. You can put the access point up really high, and it's perfect to have that there and be able to work through this. So it works very well in that scenario. In an office building, B seemed to be a better choice because of the way the lower frequency, 2.4 gigahertz, relatively lower frequency, was able to bounce around and not be absorbed by the other things around you in the cube farm. So 802.11a was a really good choice for that. And obviously, we don't see a lot of 802.11a. We've already upgraded it. We've already moved it out of these scenarios, but you will occasionally, and this is sort of the standard thing you see in networking, is that you will run into old technology all the time because you plug it in, you get it running, and we just let it go. You just let it operate. So that is really important, is that you are able to find these situations, understand what you're looking at. You walk into a building and they tell you, oh, it's 54 megabits per second and it's 5 gigahertz. You're thinking, what are you running in here? Oh, you're running 802.11a. Nobody's touched this thing for 10 years. Let's get you upgraded. So that's one of those differences. In a warehouse, there's probably good and bad reasons to upgrade, right? Because you have so many different industrial systems, tracking systems, scanners, all kinds of things running on this wireless network. If it's working, why would we change it? That's the thought process, and a good thought process to go through. There may be some very good reasons to change it. So this is one of those scenarios where 802.11a is what you're swapping out. And certainly, if you're running that 802.11a network, you probably should swap it out at that point and be able to make that happen. What would you swap it out to? That would depend on what type of systems and requirements you had in the warehouse. There's no single answer. You know, I guess we could all say, oh, go to 802.11ac. Just go to wherever the latest version is that is basically well cooked and plug that one in. But you may not need that. You may not want that. There may be a lot of reasons not to do that. So this is one of those scenarios where it's never one thing. And you'll find as a technologist, this is a advantage-disadvantage situation every single time. You have to examine what the requirements are. You have to understand what your options are available. Cost is always an issue. And then you get to make a decision. Is it always the best decision? Not always. Sometimes there's a lot of things you don't get, but you get more of what you need at a better price. So you have to make those decisions. In this case, the answer is 802.11a. That's what's running in this warehouse. 51% of you answered D. The answer D, not 802.1d. to get this. These are different options, though. 802.1x is a network standard for NAC. It's an access control standard, network access control. 802.1x is commonly used to allow or disallow access to a wireless network in an enterprise, where you would use your normal login to be able to gain access to the wireless network, but it can work on wired networks as well. 802.11ac, 39% of you said that. That is a very good option because 802.11ac does run at 5 gigahertz. However, it runs much faster than 54 megabits per second. So that would not be the right answer. 2% of you said 802.1d. For those of you familiar with that section of the exam, that's your spanning tree protocol. And 1% said 802.3. That is the Ethernet standard, not the wireless standard, not the Wi-Fi standard. That's the Ethernet itself. So that would not be the right answer. The only answer here that makes any sense whatsoever is 802.11a. 51% of you got that one absolutely right. Now, I know we're 5 minutes after, but I did talk a lot at the beginning. So let's do one more question, shall we? It's another sort of process procedure question, and we'll fit this next one in. This next question asks, very simple question. Which of the following would be most likely found at a DMARC? Would it be a workgroup switch, a CSU/DSU, a NAS, a color printer, or a tuner card? Which of the following would be most likely found at a DMARC? Would it be a workgroup switch, a CSU/DSU, a NAS, a color printer, or a tuner card? It's got to be one of those, right? All 5 of those real things, so figure out what it happens to be. You are not upgrading to 802.11a. You're upgrading from 802.11a. I should write my questions a little clearer next time. You're in the warehouse. They've asked you to upgrade it. They're currently running this. Now we move to something else. So I guess if you're putting in A, you were running nothing. You had no wireless, and you found one under a desk somewhere, and you plugged it in. I guess that would be your 802.11a upgrade. You're replacing A. That was the idea. In fact, that was sort of a hint I put in the question, is that's really old is what you're supposed to get from that. It was a really old configuration. And that might have prompted you in your brain to think back in time over what this might have been. Because 802.11ac is not really old. You really wouldn't upgrade necessarily from that. The warehouse was sort of a personal thing because that's where I saw 802.11a used the most, was in warehouses. Yes, everybody go out right now. Go to Amazon and purchase that 802.11a wireless access point. That's not what you want. Can you even get them anymore? There's got to be one for sale somewhere on eBay, right? I wonder what the cost is. How much would we pay for an 802.11a access point? Grab a Cisco 802.11a access point. Did they even have Cisco access points back then? I'm trying to remember. It was very specialized back then. When it first came out, it was hard to find sort of a centralized management of wireless networks to have that there. So it may not have been the right answer with that. So a number of you have answered this one, though. Let's see how you did with this one. Which of the following would be most likely found at a DMARC? Would it be a workgroup switch, a CSU/DSU, a NAS, a color printer, or a tuner card? Got to be something there to deal with. Let's see how you answered it. 70%, 70, said a CSU/DSU is what you would find at a DMARC. But 20% of you said workgroup switch is what you would find at a DMARC. 7% said a NAS, network attached storage. 2% of you said a tuner card. And then 1% said a color printer is what you would find at a DMARC. Well, first, it'd be good to know what a DMARC is, wouldn't it? A DMARC is a demarcation point. That doesn't help. A demarcation point, you can't see because my head's there, but it says the point where you connect with the outside world. That last word is a world. So at some point in your building, in fact, this is probably the same that you have at home, there is a point that the service provider, an internet service provider, a wide area network service provider, a third party that you're contracting with, has brought in a network connection for you. So they have sometimes drilled a hole in the wall, they've run a cable through, and probably in your data center, they have set up an area that is a demarcation point. It is the point where on this side is your network and your responsibility. On that side is their network and their responsibility. There has to be a point somewhere where you can physically separate these two things. Because if there's a problem, you need to know if it's a problem that the service provider needs to repair or if it's a problem that you need to repair. And the point where these two places meet, the point where you determine everything on this side is mine and everything on that side is yours, is the demarcation point. And there's usually in most large environments, this could be on a wall in the back of your data center. It could be a closet. If you're at home, you probably have a demarc on the side of your house. It's a telephone network interface. It's a little gray box like this one. So everything moving up to that gray box is the responsibility of your service provider. Everything from that gray box inside of your house, that's your responsibility. You are responsible for the wiring associated with that. So this is where you will run into these at home, at work, everywhere you go to have that demarc. Usually it's a central location. And what happens is a guy shows up, he's got tools or a tool belt with him, and he says, "Hey, I'm here to plug in your wide area network connection." Like, oh, well, what? I need your demarc. Just point me to your demarc. Okay, gotcha. And off we go. Oh, I know where that is. Or you may have to ask around. Does anybody know where the demarc is? This place? Oh, it's upstairs on 3rd floor. Okay, let's go. And you take up 3rd floor, and they plug in the demarc. And it's that easy. That's usually well documented. Most in large environments, the service provider has a lot of equipment in a rack. And it's a whole rack that's there as the demarc, and to have everything there. But that's where all of your CP is, your CPE, your customer premises equipment. On premise, we often say, which is not correct, but that's what we say. But your customer premises equipment, or CPE. Sometimes they'll say that your customer prem. Do you have, where's your CPE? Where's your CPE? Is it your demarc? Sure is. Let's take you here and plug it all in. And then he plugs it in. Gets your demarc. And then it's up to you. He says, there's the connections. And it's up to you. Usually for a wide area network, maybe even just an RJ45 connector is the demarc. And you plug it in and usually plug in your CSU DSU to that, because this is where you would plug in your wide area network connections. And from a wide area network provider, they may be handing you off an Ethernet connection. If these are older connections, they may be handing you off a serial connection, and it will require a CSU DSU. And you probably have rack-mounted CSU DSUs or standalone CSU DSUs. There's probably a lot of them. Here's a standalone CSU DSU. That's one that's in my closet right now. I'm not even using. But that's one that you would plug in on the back. And so because you have to have this, it's the first thing that this connection hits from the service provider. It's common to have a CSU DSU in your demarc, in your demarcation point. So very common, usually on the rack, right next to all of the provider's equipment that is usually locked up. It's just in a rack there. It's usually got batteries and it's running 12 volt and just all kinds of things happening there. But next to it is your rack, and you've got CSU DSUs, you've got routers, you might have a switch, but it usually is not a workgroup switch. Usually you're in a core plugging into other switches as well. But that's one of those cases where you do need to know where to plug in that connection and where that demarc is. These are important things. When you start working as a network administrator, first thing you're going to want to find out is where's the demarc? Where do all of our wide area network or service provider connections, where do they come into this building and where do they terminate? And if you are adding or removing any of those connections, you have to know that. You have to know it for every single one of your buildings, because someone is going to ask about that eventually. Someone will show up at the door and say, "I'm here plugging that connection." Okay, I know exactly where to take you. It's the closet up the way, or it's on the 3rd floor, or it's in our data center. That's where our demarcation point is. And if you answered B, CSU DSU, you'd be absolutely right. Would not be a workgroup switch. Workgroup switch commonly placed closer to the users up on a floor somewhere. If you are in a core of a network, and that's usually where the DMARC is, then you are most likely using a larger type of switch that has, it's not a workgroup switch. It usually has multiple power connections, so you have multiple power supplies. It's usually a much larger switch than a workgroup switch because you have many, many other devices that are plugging into it. Not what you would use commonly at a DMARC. We have NAS, network attached storage. That's usually in your data center, but not necessarily over near your DMARC. There's no need for having large amounts of storage available at your demarcation point. That's not the reason for a demarcation point anyway. Color printer, well, that's probably closer to your users, probably not even in your data center, and probably nowhere near your DMARC. And a tuner card, useful to have if you're recording things off your cable connection or off the air, but not very useful for anything near your DMARC. Only 2% of you said that. Anyway, I think most of you are spot on. About 70% of you say CSU, DSU. That is the correct answer. You got it absolutely right. Well done. And if you aren't sure, if you've got a network environment at your office and you've never seen the DMARC before, ask the network guy to let you see it. Hey, what's in your DMARC? What are these things? What's in this rack? Where's the provider equipment? Where's your equipment? So you can visually see the DMARC. They will take you to it. You can touch it. It is a thing that you can absolutely do. So have a look at that in your environment. It might help you. All of these questions today came directly from the Network Plus exam objectives. And there's a lot to go through in these objectives. They are extensive in these objectives. So make sure you have them. They tell you everything you need to know for the exam. And they're free. Go to professormesser.com/objectives. I have a link that will take you right over to the CompTIA website where you can download these objectives. Very, very useful to have. They should be the first thing you read before you start your studies. They should be the last thing you use as a checklist before you schedule your exam, because they will tell you if you don't know something. If you know everything that's listed in these exam objectives, you're going to do fine on your exam. It's going to be a breeze for you. But if there's some of these things you don't know, of course, those are going to be the questions that pop up on your exams. How it always happens, right? So don't be that person. Make sure you know everything that's on there, professormesser.com/objectives. Another study group coming up on May the 12th. We do one of these every month for Network Plus. So May the 12th is our next Network Plus study group. You can see we have other study groups during the month. On the 4th and the 6th is the A Plus study groups. The 19th is Security Plus. We still have another study group this month in April. So exactly a week from now, there is a study group for Security Plus next week. So feel free to come back next week and we'll do one of these for Security Plus. There's always something going on, but these dates can sometimes change. So if you want to be absolutely sure, whenever any of these dates change, I change it in the calendar immediately, and you will know immediately if you visit professormesser.com/calendar. And you can, of course, have a look at exactly what's happening and when it's happening. You'll know when I'm here live in the studio and be able to tune in. And we'd love to have you here. Stick around for the after show. We got plenty of questions that have come up already, and I'm sure plenty more to come. So we've got lots of phone lines will be open. Stick around for that. We're not even close to being done yet. We also have our Success Bundle on the website. A great way to support the website is purchasing the Success Bundle at professormesser.com/netsuccess. We also have brand new, you didn't even know it, our discounted exam vouchers are out there at professormesser.com/vouchers. Save some money. Do not pay full price for your vouchers. Do not buy them directly on the Pearson VUE website. Pay a discount and get the same vouchers. Plus, you get my exam hacks for free. So you're not going to get that anywhere else, only at professormesser.com. And don't forget to follow us on the YouTube, on the Twitter, on the Instagram, or whatever type of social media you would like to find us on. Just type professormesser.com/ the name of that, /Twitter, /YouTube, /Instagram, /LinkedIn, /Facebook. We're probably in one of those, and you'll be able to find us. It's a great way to follow what we're doing here. If you enjoyed this first hour, we'd love for you to click that like button. It always helps when my friends at YouTube see that you were able to at least like some of the things that you're seeing happening on this channel. And we appreciate you doing that. Costs you nothing, and it sure helps me a whole lot, and I appreciate it. Stick around for the next hour. We've got plenty of Q&A, lots of things to talk about. Thanks for being here, and we will see you next time on the Network Plus Study Group. Well, let's see if I can click a few things on my side. There we go. It's time for the after show, everybody. And we'll get to some of these questions. We get to have a battle in the chat room over Network Plus versus Cisco, which is always a good conversation, actually, because there are very good reasons to go both directions. It's never any one thing. Like anything else in the world, it's never one thing. It's always shades of gray. It's always pluses and minuses, advantages and disadvantages. And we'll talk about what those advantages and disadvantages might be. If you'll bear with me a moment, I am going to call in to my own show. It's all done in the cloud. Then I'll explain to you how you can call in the show. And you can, of course, put questions in the chat room as well. We've already gotten a few of those that have come in. But in the meantime, I'm going to call in to my own show here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm going to put in my information, and the nice lady will say,
enter your 6-digit PIN.
I will do that if I can remember my 6-digit PIN. And if that's right.
Welcome, Professor Messer.
Thanks, nice lady. There you go. I think one of these situations, if you ever work through doing this, you should always get a system that is able to talk to you by name. It's only a matter of time, people. It's going to take over. I know it will. But fortunately, I need to change my side so you can actually see how you can call in. I will take questions from the chat room, so you're welcome to do that as well. And if you want to call in on a telephone with your voice, something that some of us still like to do, you can call in a toll-free number in the continental U.S. at 855-785-RJ45. West of the Rockies, 855-785-7545. If you are outside of the continental United States, you can still call me for free, but you have to use Skype, because Skype will let you call in a toll-free number with no extra cost whatsoever. It's free to do this on Skype. No Skype minutes required, but you have to pull a +1 at the beginning. So put +1, 855-785-7545, and you can call in with that as well. But we have lots of questions that have come in already with this. So let's kind of circle back some of these questions that came up before, and we'll take them just a little bit at a time. So I'm going to kind of circle through. Oh, and it's not even showing me the super chats that we did earlier. So I'm going to scroll up, scroll, and we'll figure out these details. Thanks YouTube for that. I appreciate it. Oh, and now YouTube only lets me scroll up a certain amount. Well, I'll see if I can remember what they are. I think I remember at least some of them. So let's start with the one that came up most recently, which was we got Cisco's CCNA, which is sort of, I think, the next step from Network Plus. And then you have Network Plus. Now, if you look and see what other people on the internet are saying, they're saying that why would you even do Network Plus? Skip it completely, go directly to the CCNA. And unfortunately, that is a very narrow view of requirements for people. Not everybody needs the same level of knowledge when it comes to networking. If you're just starting in a help desk, you're probably not going to be configuring routers and switches. You don't need to know how BGP works. You don't need to know how to configure backup settings for a switch. You don't have to know how to recover if you lost the password for a router. Those things are not necessary. You don't have to know things at the command line. That's way beyond what you need to know at that point, and completely unnecessary to go get a certification regarding those topics. What you need is sort of an understanding of what is a network. How does this work? What is this mystery of things that are going over this wire that's on the floor? And is it any wire or only certain wires? What are these terms that we keep using with VPNs and IPsec and Category 5? And what is all of this? Those are the things you're going to have to kind of talk to network people about and decipher what the user is asking for, and then talk to the network team. So one of the best places to learn those things is the Network Plus. It's a great primer. It's designed to be an entry-level certification exam. And in fact, what they don't tell you is there are some topics on Network Plus that are not covered on the CCNA. So there is actually things you're going to learn on Network Plus that you would never learn on the CCNA because they simply don't cover it, because you can't. There's way too much to learn on the CCNA to even think about covering all the foundational information. And the CCNA, I think if you really sit down with somebody who is objective about these certifications, the CCNA is a good second level cert. It's an intermediate certification. It is not even close to being an entry-level cert. I would never, never, never throw an entry-level person at the CCNA. That is not a good idea. Unless they're really interested in networking. They are shooting towards being a network administrator. They have some experience already with networking, and they are willing to spend the extra time to learn the fundamentals as they go through the CCNA studies. A lot of people do that. So that's one of those where I think it makes more sense for most people who are starting out, or for people that are just getting that first help desk job, to focus on fundamentals. And the Network Plus is that fundamental certification. Now, the chat room, people say, how about the CCENT? Because that is the one that traditionally Cisco has always said, that's our entry-level cert, is the CC Enterprise, no, what is it? Enterprise Network Technician? That is the one that they always said, that's the one that plays best, or you should replace with Network Plus, except doesn't exist any longer. The CCENT was, they threw it out about a year ago, just over a year ago now. Doesn't exist. No longer an option. There's only one exam now that you take, and it's the CCNA exam. That is sort of the entry-level start in Cisco, which to the rest of the world is an intermediate level cert. So it's not where you could swap out Network Plus and CCNA. It's not even close to that. The CCNA is a very complex certification that is going to require a lot of networking knowledge from you. You're getting a very, very detailed understanding of how to administer and configure switches, routers, different settings on those, voice over IP, API configurations, just tons of knowledge that you have to know for CCNA. Very advanced if you're someone who is just starting out, and not where I recommend most people start. There are good reasons to jump over Network Plus. There's also good reasons to take Network Plus. So I would be very careful if you're trying to evaluate which one you should do. Have a look at both. And perhaps even more importantly, find out what employers are looking for. You may find that all the employers in your area want you to have Network Plus. Or you may find that all the employers in your area never mention Network Plus and they all mention CCNA. Well, that might help you make some decisions. And I'm more than willing to lean people in a direction that's going to help them most to get that job, because that's what I want to see. I want to see you get that job or get that better job. And if everybody's asking for CCNA, well, maybe expect to spend a little more time on your studies. But if that's the direction you want to go for your career, then that helps you make that decision. But you don't know until you look at the job postings that are out there. That's another part of this that I think is we sort of miss, is we often think the industry says I should take this first, and then the industry says I should take this one next, and then the industry says I should take this one last, or fourth, or sixth, or eighth. We just go down this list. But the reality is it doesn't matter what the industry thinks. It matters most of the time what the employer thinks, because they're the one hiring you. So it is a combination of things between what your interest is, where your focus is, where you want to go in the future, and what employers are willing to pay you for. Because that's what a lot of us are here for, is to get a job or get a better job. And that's one of those situations where it does really, really incredibly important that you find the right path for you and find the right path that employers are looking for. Combine those two things together, and that's a good, very important piece of this. So feel free to tell me that I'm wrong. Feel free to complain about that, or tell me what about this or what about that. We can kind of go down that road. There's never a yes or no or correct or incorrect answer here. It's always a different set of requirements for every single person. So we should really think about those requirements and break them out. Jim in the chat room asks, what do I think of AWS certifications? The Amazon Web Services, which is effectively a cloud-based certification. And I've said in other study groups that the cloud is just burning hot right now. A lot of jobs out there want you to have knowledge in the cloud. And if you are someone who has AWS certifications, a lot of employers have a lot of Amazon that need to be administered, and they need somebody who understands the internals of the Amazon cloud. The AWS certs are extremely good for that. on the other hand, there's a ton of Microsoft Azure going on right now too. That is the other hot side. They are effectively similar technologies. Maybe the nomenclature is a little different between them, but it's effectively the same type of fundamentals. It's cloud-based technologies. So cloud is where the world is right now. It's not that we're moving there. We're already there. Now that we're there, how do we optimize it? How do we automate it? Orchestrate it in the world of cloud computing? How do we have people understand when things go wrong, how to fix it? When we want to implement new technologies into the cloud, how do we engineer those properly? Those are important certifications to have. So if you're somebody who's just getting into the industry or you want to move into more of cloud-based technologies and understand more about what's going on, the Amazon certs are very good for that. The Microsoft Azure certs are very good for that. So those are two probably the hottest sides of the cloud-based side of things right now. I'm probably a little bit biased on the cloud side because one of my sons right now is finishing up his cloud computing degree, cloud administration. So he's already doing the cloud-based implementations. He's using the Amazon, the Azure, and the Kubernetes, and he's already doing it. And not even started a job anywhere, but he's already got that knowledge. He knows much more about the administration side of the cloud than I do at this point because he's been spending heads down months and months going through this and working on it day after day after day. So valuable skills. He's going to be able to walk out after graduating and he's in the Orlando area. He can get a job pretty much anywhere in Orlando. He's got some great skills to be able to do that. Do I test my son on it or does he test me? A little back and forth. At least I went with him through the process of visiting the school and I grabbed their cloud guy, the guy who set the curriculum, and I sat down one-on-one with him and said, what do you guys do? What about these technologies? What about these technologies? What about this? What about that? Do you do any containerization? How do you do it? How do you build out some projects to have the cloud-based technologies, and what technologies are you using? Oh, we're using Amazon, we're using Azure, we're doing this, we're doing that. They had all the right answers. I said, oh, my son needs to get in here and learn this stuff because he needs to be smarter than I am on these. So off he went, and he was having a lot of fun with it too. So that's good. It's kind of nice when that happens. It's a big combination, a good combination of things. And we'll see if it works out. Maybe he'll get into it, and the way technology works is you suddenly see something shiny over here and you start moving that direction. So maybe he'll start with cloud, but who knows where you're going to end up. This is a business where you can do anything you want. There's jobs available anywhere in IT. Go out and get those jobs. It's a great place. Camshaft in the chat room, thank you for the $5 donation. Thank you for the nice, kind words there. I appreciate that. Very kind of you to have that functionality there. That's always useful. If you're somebody who's trying to figure out where to go, have a look at the cloud computing technology certifications out there. Have a look at what employers are looking for. See if there's a sweet spot somewhere in the middle to have those. Kyle in the chat room with a $4.99 donation, thank you, has his question pop right up that says, do I think cloud-based degrees are better than a computer science degree? I would not say they're better, but they are absolutely completely different topics. Cloud computing or cloud technology is something completely different than computer science. As badly as the industry, or I would say the university system, is not good at cloud, universities have not done a very good job at least pointing us to more modern technologies. Universities are just lagging behind. I happen to know this because I just went through this process with my son of trying to find somewhere that can help him understand where to get good knowledge in the latest technologies. And we looked at all of the state schools, all of the state universities. We looked at private organizations. We looked at public. And if you look at universities and you say, I want to learn more about technology, many times they kind of funnel you into computer science. But computer science has nothing to do with IT. It's about application development. It's about hardware development. It's about programming. Computer science is incredibly important and necessary, but computer science has nothing to do with IT. Those two worlds are very different. And I know the industry is trying to cram them together. It's not going to work. It is not working. I shouldn't say it's not going to work. It is not working. Turns out it didn't do that. There are some schools out there that have IT programs, but even their IT programs have a limited cloud. And that's the problem I was running into with all of those. Mostly in Florida is where I was looking, but I was looking outside of Florida as well with those. And it tends to be one of those situations. Computer science and programming, if you want to do application development, if you want to do programming, it's kind of a competitive market, but it is very, very different than IT. Computer science is about creating the applications and the technologies that the applications run on. IT is about making sure they run and keeping the data safe. And those are two very, very different worlds that only barely overlap with each other. So this is not, if somebody said, oh, I'm really interested in IT, I love operating systems, I love security, networking is fascinating to me, I'm going to go get a computer science degree. Really? Because that has nothing to do with networking, operating systems, or security. Nothing. You're not going to learn anything about managing any of that. You're going to learn about programming. Best of luck to that. That's the difference between those two. So pick the right side of this. Pick the side that makes sense, because what you'll find is that we don't have a huge emphasis or need for application development in IT. The computer science people, they don't need to know a lot of knowledge on how to administer a Windows Active Directory domain. They don't care. They're building apps. It's up to the IT side to do the Active Directory thing. So that's where the differences are. And if you're somebody who's trying to figure out which one is best, well, now that depends on what you want to do for the rest of your career. You will spend your entire career doing application development if that's what you'd like to do, because you will need that much time to really master your craft. It takes years and years and years and years of work to be able to be very good, or really even kind of good, at application development. Whereas almost the same scenario on the IT side. You will spend your entire career in IT still not learning everything you need to learn, because first, there's way too much to learn already. And then on top of that, new technologies are coming around all the time. So that's why if you're ever in a situation where you're trying to pick between those two, really have a look at what you need to focus on. Find out the things that you like to do. Find out the things that people are asking for in your area, because I think that's an important part of this too. And that'll be something you can at least help make your decision, because those are two very, very different things. It's sort of irritating if you watch third parties. If you ever talk to a politician, or you ever hear a politician talk about technology, they constantly say, we got money and we're going to teach people how to code. And it just drives me crazy. So you've got money. Why don't you teach people how to use Linux? Why don't you teach people how to administer switches and routers? Why don't you teach people about IT security? That's important too. So unfortunately, people who aren't technical, though, don't know that. They don't understand there's a separation. So it's up to us to explain it to them and explain them that it's not just about coding. In fact, most of us in IT don't code. There's no coding. We script, we automate, but that's not coding. Coding, I think, is you're building an app. There's object-oriented work that you're doing to build an application that is running on a mobile device or running in a browser. You're never going to do that in IT. Why would you do that? You got a whole computer science department that can do that for you. You should be doing more important things in IT. So that's your pluses and minuses, and figuring out the details of that. I think if you're ever in a situation where you're just starting out in the roles, you don't know. If you're just starting out in a college, you're trying to figure out what to do, you don't know. So spend some time learning about those things, and you can kind of figure out what direction you would like to go with this. If you are in a 4-year college, a traditional school, and all they have is computer science, they don't really have an IT degree, or I want to say with Florida State here in Florida, or one of them, the IT department, the IT training was under the engineering school. It's not really engineering either. So it's frustrating sometimes to kind of find the right fit. I don't know that 4-year universities have really figured it out yet. If they would have, they would already be in better shape. I will say there are some 4-year colleges that were spot on. I did find a couple here and there. They were not in Florida. They were outside the state, where they really were very, very focused on what the important parts were with IT, and they had a very strong IT program. They were teaching the Microsoft certifications. They were doing cloud-based technologies. Those are really good. But you may find that if you are in a four-year school, you may not have a lot of choices. There might be an MIS, management information systems, or business IT type role that you might look at. There might also be, your only choice might also be computer science. You may not have a choice. If you want to do anything technical, you have to get through computer science and then maybe shift gears into IT once you get out of school, which isn't a great match either. In my case, I got a degree in business, not a technical degree. But I was doing technical jobs at the time. I was working in the computing center with mainframes and supercomputers. I knew technology was something that really, really interested me. But at that time, we were really just starting to pave the roads. So technology was not, there weren't a lot of microcomputers hanging out in school. There were some. We were at the beginnings of computer labs in the universities. So there weren't a lot of degrees based around that. What? You could do a job working with computers? Come on. Nobody can do that. All you can really do is code. And that's what they did. The MIS degrees were, half of it was business and the other half of it was you learning how to code. Seriously, there really was no IT in there either. It's one of those situations where you really have to do your homework on these and find the best fit for what you want to do. And I think that would help too. There was another question that came up earlier and I cannot scroll up to it because apparently YouTube doesn't allow me to do that anymore. But if you did ask that question earlier, there was something else I wanted to go back and talk about. And maybe somebody can figure out those. In the meantime, we'll talk with more Floridians in the 904 area code. Hi, caller. Which name were you calling from?
Yes. Hey, how you doing, Professor? My name is Elliot. Good afternoon.
Hey, Elliot. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Well, I just want to thank you. Throughout your studies and your course notes, I passed my A+ hardware software along with my Network Plus.
Wow. Did you do this all at the same time?
Yes. No. It's like about a couple weeks within a month.
Wow.
Between the three tests.
That's still pretty good.
You're awesome. Also, right now, I'm focusing on the Security Plus. That is a whole animal within itself.
So true.
Yes, sir. But in between time, what is your antivirus / anti-malware of choice?
This is a question that is somewhat subjective, but there are some objective tools that you could use to be able to figure this out. The answer for an industry, if you worked in a very large company, there are good reasons to buy antivirus or anti-malware software from a third party. Most of those are based around the size of the antivirus implementation in other enterprises. A lot of it revolves around the management of the antivirus, because when you work with an enterprise and there's 1,000 devices, how do you manage antivirus across all thousands of those devices? You can't just do that from your Windows desktop with Defender. That you need something that's really designed for the enterprise. And I'm speaking very specifically as someone who was a systems engineer for McAfee. At the time, it was not McAfee, it was Network Associates, but it was a combination of McAfee and Network General. So I was certified on all of the McAfee enterprise antivirus technologies, and that was the primary focus. Otherwise, we just used the software that came with our systems. The problem is it's kind of hard to manage those centrally. It's a little bit better in Windows now. They're starting to integrate more of Defender into Active Directory and give you more options with that. And for most people, I would say the vast majority of people, certainly people at home, Defender's great. It scores well on the third-party virus testing. It probably some of the highest scores you'll find of any of the antivirus that's out there, and it's free. It just runs. It doesn't get in the way of Windows. It doesn't constantly give you pop-ups saying now you have to resubscribe. You can delete anything else that may be on your system at home and run Windows Defender, or what's now just Defender. And you are in perfect shape. You are well protected with some of the best antivirus in the industry, and it's one that works so nicely with Windows and doesn't get in the way of anything.
Understood. You know, because as per the studies, and now I'm following your videos, and thank you for that. But I remember that you're saying you always want to have a defense in depth. So what I did, I went and got Malwarebytes, and also I got Bitdefender.
Sure.
I veered away from Norton due to the negative reviews that I got from it, and also one of my teachers, instructors, shall I say, was like, Norton kind of slows it down to act as a virus. So I was just trying to see what third party that you go through or suggest as being the guru that you are.
You know, the one thing that I pretty much found, and it's sort of this universal standard, is if you go outside the scope of Defender and you're getting a third-party product to install in your system, nobody's ever completely happy with antivirus. Antivirus, I think it's just because of the nature of the animal, is that it has to get underneath the operating system. And I talk about this in my new Security Plus course, where we talk about the boot process and how antivirus is now integrated into the boot process. You've got protections to the kernel and other operating system files. There's so much there to work through that sometimes getting that underneath the operating system creates problems for other things that might be loading. So you have to be very careful about implementing it, installing it, making sure it works, and those types of things. But it is once it's working, once you've got it installed and working, it's great. And if you go with the big names, you're usually in much better shape. The two you mentioned are very good, very strong names that always score very high. The Bitdefender is always very good, and the Malwarebytes is probably my number one pick for anti-malware. So you're in very good shape with both of those.
Thank you. Last question. When would the rest of the videos be out for Security 601?
Oh boy, there's the question of the month. For those of you that have kind of been following in this saga of the SY0-601 course on my website, the total course is about 156 videos. That's an enormous course. If this was the same size as the previous version, I'd be done already. We'd have all the videos out and you'd be watching all of them. But it is not that case. It is a much larger certification and just takes a little bit longer to get them all done. I have 125, 126 that are posted to the website now, or 111, I forget. I've got a bunch that are in the can, as they say, waiting to be edited. And then I have another 34 or so videos to shoot. And that seems like a lot. Well, it is a lot, but I tend to shoot them in chunks. So I'm hoping that I'll have all of the video recording done by the end of the month. And then it's a relatively easy process to edit and get the rest of those videos out after that. So we're kind of at the end of this. It's kind of this month. The end of this month, beginning of next, will probably be the final set of videos that comes out. But this is one of those cases, and it's the advantages and disadvantages of me doing these courses the way I do them, is I don't have a deadline. I would like to get them out absolutely as quickly as possible to you. I would like them all to have been done months ago, but physics always gets in the way. And sometimes the life gets in the way. There's things that happen in my world that kind of take me out of the office sometimes, and then I can come back and start working on these. But right now, I'm kind of heads down. I shot about 15 to 20 videos in the past week. There's another 30 to go. So that should give you at least some idea of time frames, but it's not much longer now. We are getting there near the end, and I'm hoping to have them out very soon. I can appreciate your interest in getting that done, because I assure you I have just as strong an interest of getting them out as well, Elliot.
Right. Yes, sir. Well, thank you. Thank you for allowing me into your phone system and chatting with you. And thank you. Thank you again.
I appreciate the call. Best of luck.
All right. Thank you. You too. Bye. That's
one of those situations, though, that and a lot of people are looking for the end of the SY0-601 videos. I'm right there with you, because there's a bunch of things that happen on my side. I create the videos, I post them, I put them there for a couple weeks. people find that they're good, or some people find that there's an error or something that's not quite clear. So I'll go back in and fix it, or I'll go make it more clear, and then I'll post a new version. That doesn't happen a lot. Sometimes I do that if it's just a glaring problem. And sometimes I do get stuff wrong. Sometimes I'll put it on the screen and it's there on the screen, but I say the wrong thing. Happens all the time. It's just a human thing. And I have to pull it back down and fix it and put it back up. Those things happen, but they're very few and far between. But once they're up there a couple of weeks and we've had a few thousand people have watched it and nobody's complained about it, then I send it off to be transcribed, and I get a transcription by a human, and they do a full human being transcription of the video. That gets posted. I put it on the website, and then we're sort of done with that video. Then we're good at that point. And the same thing's going to happen for these next 30-something videos that I need to shoot. So it won't be long now. We'll get to that point once it finally gets there. Let's go back to the phones. Thanks for holding for so long. The 803 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Josiah. I'm calling from South Carolina.
Hello, Josiah. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Yeah, I'm a high school senior, and when you're talking about looking at colleges, I mean, I understand that. What do you think the best path is, just generally? Like, do you think an associate's degree that just focuses on, the IT stuff, or maybe a bachelor's degree that has, a lot of different stuff in it? Like, what do you think is better overall?
It depends on who you talk to and what people's opinions are when it comes to 2-year degrees, 4-year degrees, and those types of things. I think a 4-year degree ultimately has a little more juice, has a little bit more street cred with employers than a 2-year degree does, which is probably appropriate. But what I found is that the community colleges do a much better job teaching technology. In fact, a lot of the community colleges in my area will teach you A+, Network+, Security+. They've got the testing facility there that you could take your exam at the college. And they're sort of prepared for someone learning those fundamentals of IT. And they teach them at the college, which my 4-year college down the street from there doesn't teach any of that content. So maybe that's where community college is starting to fit a little better in that scenario. I started my first year at a 4-year school, did horribly, went to a community college for my second year, was much more comfortable, got my AA degree, and then went back to the 4-year college and finished up with my business degree. So I've done both of those. Most of my kids have gone to community college as their first couple of years. Because it works so well with me, I sort of said, wouldn't you like to kind of have the easy on-ramp and then work your way up into doing what you want to do? Because as it turns out, where you go to school does not necessarily have anything to do with how successful you are, how much money you make, or what types of jobs you're going to get. It doesn't. The people in high school will tell you the opposite of that. They will tell you if you don't go to an Ivy League school, you have automatically failed, and the best you can do is maybe pick up some scraps of meat at some state college. Maybe that will, some state university will take you, and you'll get some, state university degree. I have no idea where they get these ideas from. The key with any school, any 2 or 4-year college, any 2 or 4-year degree, is that the value and the use of that degree is what you do with it, not what the people telling you that you need to do go with it. It's what you end up doing with it. So I would say I had a very useful and a lot of fun IT career doing the day-to-day systems engineering, IT management, server management, workstation configuration, field service. I did a lot of different jobs in IT and loved it. It's a great place to be. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this because I wouldn't be telling other people, this is really a great thing you can do. It's a lot of fun and you can make a lot of money. That's a great combo in my world. If you can have fun and make money doing it, that's fantastic. And there's no ceiling. Sign me up. That's what I want to do. And as it turns out, it doesn't matter what school you go to, as long as you're getting a good education in what you're learning. Now, I think it's important that you focus on career goals that are well accepted in our industry. So getting a degree that is an IT degree, a computer science degree, an engineering degree, a business degree, an economics degree, those are good degrees to have to get into IT. A lot of these schools will give you a 4-year degree in music. They'll give you a 4-year degree in drama. And those are great if you want to do something with music or drama, but they don't help you a lot if you're showing up and wanting to get a job in IT. So there are some degrees that are better than others. I talk about this a little bit in my video on my YouTube channel on how to get a job in IT with no experience. And I talk about the value of that formal education and what that really means by formal education, because it's different depending on who you talk to. There are some people I've worked with in the industry that were brilliant technologists that understood the technology, that could make it dance, that moved up into higher level roles in the organization, that made more money than I did and did not have a college degree. So I don't tell people don't go get one, but I do tell people what you are doing with that college degree is only a portion of what you will find makes you valuable in the future. And the key is for you to learn everything you can in that 4-year degree, become familiar with the process, understand what you need to understand to get that degree and get out the door. And then once you have the degree, go do what you want to do. Go find the job that interests you. Go find the job that makes money. Go find the job that's intellectually stimulating to you, or one that you're just interested in. The degree kind of gives you the ticket in the door. And then once you get the first job, not many people are asking anymore about your 4-year degree. They're all asking what you did last. So that's sort of the other weird thing about this. Now, if you're going into a job where you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be a doctor, okay, maybe going to Yale and getting a law degree at Yale, that does have some street cred. I get it. But for IT, we're not lawyers. We're not doctors. We're not learning that level of detail. We're working on something completely different and probably making more money than they are. But don't tell them that, or they're all going to want to come into IT. So that's the thing to focus on. Is you're going through high school, you're finishing it up, you're trying to figure out, what do I do next? Don't worry about the details. Find the thing that kind of points you in the right direction. Do the best thing that you can with what you are working on. And then when you get out of college, go do whatever you want to do, because now you've got the ticket to do it. Maybe that will help you, Josiah.
Yeah, I totally agree about the technical college and the community colleges, because at first I wanted to go to the 4-year college, but, looking at my local technical college, I mean, they have actual good programs. And then
Great.
You mentioned this. My 4-year college actually classifies it under engineering, like you were saying, and it's a cybersecurity 4-year thing, but it's still under engineering. So, I mean, I think the technical colleges, even if like people say and your counselor tells you,
and maybe that's
4-year.
Maybe that's fine that it's in the engineering school. If you start looking at the curriculum itself and you go class by class, this is what I ended up doing, go class by class to see what they teach you. And if every class is about programming security, then that's the wrong thing. But if every class ends up being one on security in the cloud, understanding encryption technologies, understanding VPNs and how they operate, understanding how to manage multi-factor authentication, understanding SIMs, well, then you're in the right place. Even though it's under the College of Engineering, they're teaching the right thing. So there's your balancing act. You'll just have to look at it and give it a very close reading to figure out if it's a good fit or not.
Yeah, and then just one more thing, and I think you said this too. There's another program at the technical college that takes you to a 4-year. Do you think that's something that would be good, or even is that what you did? Because that's another option. It's a 2+2 program. You go to the technical and then you go to the 4-year, and you're kind of halfway done once you get.
I am seeing more and more of that. In fact, there's a program at my local community college that says if you get your AA, you are automatically accepted to the 4-year school if you follow their particular program. And it's sort of a 2-2 or a 2+ or whatever they're doing with that. And they've got an agreement, because they're both state colleges or state universities. They've got an agreement with the other school that says if they get the AA, we'll put them right in. We got a slot for them, so we'll get you in there, which, as it turns out, is a pretty big deal these days, because sometimes it's hard just to get a slot in year 3 at a state university into that college because they only have a certain number of slots available, which I think is ridiculous, but there it is. They fill up, and you say, I'm going to be going into their IT program and their engineering school, and you show up on the doorstep saying, I just got my AA. I'd like to get in the engineering program, please. And they go, oh, we don't have any more seats. You can't do it this quarter. Well, then what are you going to do? You just got your AA degree. You can't even fit into the college. You can't even get any classes in the college. But with these programs they've set up, the 2 and 2 or the 2+ or whatever they're doing, those reserve you a seat. So if you are in a community college and you're looking to do that, definitely look into those things to figure it out. Also, one of the things I didn't mention, Josiah, is my local community college. If you already have an A+, Network Plus, or Security Plus, and you go into school, they just give you college credit for it. So you don't even have to take the class if you're already certified. And I know some people are already in that position. That might be something to think about too.
Yeah, thank you. I think this helps a lot. And a lot of what you said, I mean, I'm already relating to, so I think this will help. So again, thank you. Thank you for everything.
Absolutely. Best of luck. That's always a fun thing to go through the process of finding the right school, looking through the curriculum. I've just spent years doing that I've got 3 kids. My daughter is now out of school with her IT degree. We had to find a university. It was a private school in Florida that had an IT program, and a very good IT program. So that was great. My son, as it turns out, getting cloud computing. So I don't know what happened. My kids are wanting to do technology, which is fine. They could do whatever they want, but I like that. My third kid, my son, my last, is getting his AA degree right now. I don't know what he's going to do. Probably not going to do technology. There's always something going on here. He's going to do something, maybe business. We don't know. But who knows where that will turn out. But the key is that he'll have a good foundation regardless of what that happens to be. And if he doesn't do IT, that's fine. I keep telling him I am paying too much to lawyers, and he needs to go get a law degree so that I don't have to pay so much for a lawyer. And he said, oh, no, he'll charge me full price. So that doesn't help me either. So maybe one of those will work out for me. We'll have to see. Let's go back to the phones, to the 718 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Caller. Are you there? Am I muted, caller? Is the mute button on and we're not able to talk? Is that what happened? Because you're up. You're on. The potentiometer is turned on. I hear something in the background, caller. Are you there? Are you there? There's a conversation going on. Honey, I'm on the phone. I'm holding for Professor Messer. So we're the shot, right? We had to go through that. I don't know what was going on, but there was something important happening there. I don't know what it is. Are you there, caller? Hey, caller. Hey, I'm talking to you. How you doing?
Sorry, I wasn't thinking. I really wasn't.
You're a little echoey. I don't know if you have a phone or you can pick up on that, but it would be nice if you're able to pick up a phone or maybe not be on a speaker.
Yeah, hello?
There,
Can you hear
hello.
me?
Yeah, now you sound fantastic. What's your question, caller?
Yes, how you doing? My question to you, I've been following you for a long time, and basically I got my A+, my Security Plus through you, and I just got my Cybersecurity Information Assurance degree and the SSCP. How do I get into the IT field?
Well, you've got a good set of knowledge behind you. You've got just tons there, and I'm so glad that we hung on there and got you on the phone to talk about some of these things. Because getting that sort of foundational knowledge of a formal degree is a big part of this. We just sort of followed up the last caller right into this. So now you've gone to the 4-year school, you've gotten your 2-year degrees or 4-year degrees, you've gotten some specializations in the things that you want to do. Now you need to get a job, and that's the next hardest spot. There is that video I've already mentioned that's on my channel, which is how to get a job in IT with no experience. And I will have Lori is watching this, and I will have Lori add that link to the YouTube video description so that you will have an easy way to find that. That video goes through 4 elements that I think are crucial for you to get a job in IT with no experience. The first one is a formal education, and it sounds like you have definitely got that one down. You've got some great education, some great degrees, and that you can put on a resume. So already you're a little ahead of the game there. The second element is some type of industry certification. Well, you've already covered those bases too. You've got A+, you got Network Plus, the Security Plus piece. Those are valuable to have as well because they go a lot outside the scope of many formal degrees. And as it turns out, a lot of employers are looking for these. The only way you would know, and I mentioned this in the video, is if you go do some research. So there's a little bit of work you have to do to look at all the job postings in your area that fit your requirements. Maybe it's a help desk position. Maybe it's a network operations center. Maybe it's a security operations center, a SOC. Find those entry-level jobs in your area and see what they're asking for. Do they want a Security Plus? Do they want a Network Plus? Do they want a CCNA? Do they want AWS? What do they want? Figure it out, and then you'll know what certifications are going to work for you. And I'll bet A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, you're covering a lot of good bases there. So those are great to have. That's your second element of 4. Your third element of these is to have some practical experience. Now, this is the hard part, is how do you get experience if you don't yet have a job in IT? Well, in the video, I talk about some of the ways you can do that. Sometimes it's volunteering. Sometimes it's creating your own lab. And I have some examples in that video of labs that you could set up so that you can have some stories to bring into an interview and explain to someone what you were able to do with this technology. One of the labs is setting up Active Directory lab. Another lab is setting up a firewall and intrusion prevention. And trust me, from both of those, you're going to have plenty of stories to tell. And the fourth one, as some people are mentioning in the chat room, is already having a relationship with someone who works at that company. And by relationship, I'm not talking about you spend time at their house on the weekends, or you are someone who travels with them everywhere they go. It's a professional relationship. It's an acquaintance of yours. It's somebody you know from church. It's somebody that your family knows. It's somebody that you met at a trade show or you met at a user group meeting. Just knowing that person and knowing they work there gives you some credibility when you walk into that interview, because now you know them, they know you, and there's a level of trust there. Like most things, trust is important. And having that trust level is also incredibly important. So go through the process also yourself of working through that. I think if anybody is ever in a situation where they're working very hard to get all 4 of those elements, I think that probably positions you the best for those jobs. So if you've already done the first 2, you've got the formal education, you've got the industry certification, now the last 2. And I'm seeing my streaming system is already having glitches there. I apologize for this. We have to give you a different video posted when we're here, or I'll have to move things around on the streamer side with the videos. There we go. I think if you focus on those 4 elements, I think you're going to be in pretty good shape. So have a look at that. See if that works for you. See if some of those topics make sense. Maybe they will as you go through this, and it might help you out for what you're planning to do in the future.
All right. Thank you so much. It was really helpful.
Absolutely. I appreciate the call. Thank you. For those of you watching, yeah, you can see the streaming piece is glitching out. I have a cable here that has to be replaced, and I haven't replaced it. It's on the back side. For those of you watching, it's on the back side over here. I cannot get it quite tight enough. It's kind of settled down just a little bit. So I apologize for the video glitching out a little bit like that. It's not burning out. It's just a cable that's loose. It's like anything. Have you unplugged it and plugged it back in again? Yes, but it is a loose cable. Those of you, you're A+ people, you knew it right away. You knew it was a loose cable. You knew that's what it was. I just have to wiggle it just a little bit. You know how that goes. And I did not. I pulled the desk out and broke the cable. See, you were here for the first hour. You knew what was going on with that. There is what actually is happening there. I'll show you this. This is my video switcher that when I move back and forth between all of those video displays, this video view up here is from the switching point of view. So that is what I'm using to to switch back and forth. On the back of this are a bunch of BNC connectors, because the type of video connection this uses is SDI. And the SDI video audio connection is sending that 4K signal back and forth. Well, what I found is that this particular unit moves around the desk, and occasionally one of those BNCs will slowly get pulled back and forth, and it slowly gets looser and looser, and then you start seeing glitching like that. And then to fix it, I just kind of slap the back of it. I kind of push down on the cables, and it makes a better connection. And what I have to do is now unplug. I got to crimp it a little more and stick it back and just push it together, and have that there, and have all those pieces. So that's really what you're seeing, is me trying to deal with tons of cables here and making all of these things work together. And sometimes it works really, really well. Sometimes not so much. And we have to check the cables again. BNC is a pretty good one, though, because there are, on the back of this switcher, I think there are probably about 10 different BNC connections, because there's both input and output that I'm sending back and forth to this. So that's pretty good for the amount of cable that I've got here. It's just now I need to go through. It's time for another update. It's time for my normal maintenance, where I can get my pliers out and kind of push them down a little more, tighten them up, and get them back in there. And I think we'll be fine. It's one of those that the nature of the business and making all of these things happen. But it seems to have settled down just a little bit now. So hopefully that will help a little bit better. If only it worked like the Super NES, just blow on the cartridge, put it back in there, it would be fine. Some of us have had to do that and work through it. Let's go back to some of the questions that came up earlier. There were some questions, a couple things. So one was this trying to compare and contrast SSL VPN versus IPsec. And the problem is that these are very interrelated technologies. But let me give you sort of a high-level differentiation where, of course, none of this is 100% differentiated, but there's a pretty solid one we can talk about the industry. So I'll give you from the perspective of a firewall administrator who is using that firewall both as an IPsec connection and SSL VPN connectivity. And we'll sort of work through all of those. First, you have this need whenever you have remote locations or third-party sites that you communicate with. There is a need to be able to connect them together, usually using an internet connection, because that makes sense. In my videos, in my studio here, all of the connectivity I have to the internet is like a gig down and hundreds of megabits up. So I've got a big internet pipe that I can use to send data. But the problem with the internet is that it's public, is that somewhere through the internet lines, there could be people tapping into those connections and listening. And not that they're actively waiting for me and listening for my things, but that does happen. There are cases where people have had to plug in to do analysis, to check it out. The point is they could see the data that's inside of that, and I have no control over that. So one of the things I can do is, before sending it out to the public internet, I could encrypt it. Well, that means, of course, on the other side, it has to be decrypted. But if I have a lot of remote locations, instead of paying for a separate network connection, a separate WAN link, a separate high-speed network connection, I've already got one for the internet. Why not just use the same internet link to connect our sites together? And that's primarily where IPsec excels. IPsec is a set of standards and protocols that are used to be able to create an encrypted tunnel between two endpoints. Very commonly, those endpoints, increasingly commonly, those endpoints are firewalls, almost exclusively, but doesn't have to be. But very commonly, they're firewalls, because you already have a firewall at the remote site anyway. You've already got a firewall at your home office. You got a firewall at every remote site because the internet is there. So why not connect up a encrypted tunnel between your home site and all of these remote locations? And IPsec is a perfect tool to be able to do site-to-site VPN. That's what those are primarily used for. Now, there are cases, for those of you that have done this before, there are certainly cases where you could do IPsec from an in station. From my computer here, I could use IPsec to build a tunnel to a firewall and set it up that way, but that's not common. That's very uncommon. In fact, most of the time, IPsec is really focusing on end-to-end tunnel between locations. That is its most common configuration. But you've also got this need, as we've all seen over these last year, is there's a good reason that you would need to have everybody on their laptop or their tablet or their mobile phone to also be able, anytime they'd like, to communicate back to the home office over an encrypted link, because they're at a coffee shop, they're at an open Wi-Fi, or they're at their house, and they're also communicating back to the home office over the internet. That needs to be encrypted too. But IPsec is it's a relatively complex and involved process to set up this tunnel. There needs to be something that's really designed for temporary use. It can be designed when a user needs it, they can connect over an encrypted link, and when they don't need it, they can turn it off. There's something that the end user needs. An end user VPN very commonly is what we refer to as an SSL VPN. And quite honestly, the term is a little outdated, but it's so easy to say. SSL is so much easier to say than a TLS VPN, which is why we don't use that term, even though that's what it is. We just say SSL VPN because it's easy to say. The SSL VPN first uses SSL. So it uses a protocol that all of our browsers know how to use, that all of our firewalls understand how to transport. There's no weird certificates we have to install on our side. We don't have to know a shared phrase between our side and the other side. So simple to set up. And it's usually client software that's already part of the operating system you're using, or a very easy piece of software to install. And from there, we can put in our user credentials. It builds an encrypted tunnel to our home site. We can connect to our Windows servers. We can transfer files. We can check our mail. And when we're done, we can disconnect that and we're finished. And there was no overhead. There was no weirdness that has to be set up on our firewall. There's no forwarding we have to do. There's no firewall rules we have to create. It's using SSL. It's a protocol we use every day. So that makes it very, very easy to use. SSL VPN is usually referred to as in-station VPN or remote access VPN. And that is one that you'll find also sometimes connects to a firewall, but it's a different type of communication. It's SSL versus being IPsec. Generally, those are different technologies used for different things, depending on what you're doing. But of course, there are corner cases where there might not be different things that we're doing. It might be that SSL VPN is used for different things than IPsec. But I think for the vast majority of encrypted tunnels, that's what you would find. In-station or end-user VPN is SSL VPN. Site-to-site VPN is usually IPsec as the VPN. So those are the two big differences. If you had to kind of figure those out or put one into your environment, you'd probably choose one or the other depending on what your requirements were. Would I recommend VPN as a service? There's lots of VPN services out there. If you didn't want to run your own VPN concentrator at home and you wanted to connect to a third-party VPN service, just watch any video on YouTube and they will promote a VPN service to you. I don't do that VPN service promotion thing. That's not my gig. So I'm not going to be the one to kind of talk along those lines. There's plenty of options out there. There's big names. The good part about it is that VPN is not rocket science. So it's not too hard to find a good VPN provider. You just want to find one that has software for your operating system, for your mobile device. It's reliable. You can connect to it from anywhere. Okay, now you're good. That's the VPN you need. I think that's the piece that's the thing you should watch for. I don't promote or encourage or pick any particular VPN service over another. In fact, I don't have one because all the VPN I do is directly back to my server. I don't use a third party. I go directly to my computer or to my router, and then that's it. I'm VPNing directly to my home or to my office. So you may want to do the same thing. It's really not that hard to get it set up on your own side. There's some limitations with software sometimes. There's some limitations to what your local router can support. But it is a very useful technology to run at home, and you don't have to pay anybody. You already have the router. You already have the internet connection. Why pay extra money per month if all you need is a VPN connection? That makes sense to me. That's a very simple setup. But if you want it hands off, you don't want to have to manage it. You don't have to deal with it. You got power problems at home all the time. Your network connection's never stable. Okay, maybe third-party VPN makes sense. And they're relatively inexpensive. So that might be a good one to do as well. Figure out the pluses and minuses for you, the advantages and disadvantages, and pick the one that makes sense for you and what you're doing. And I think you'd be fine. Who manages my home network in the family? Well, I've got all this help. You think they would all be helping me with my network, but nope, I'm the network admin of the house. Fortunately, there's not much that has to be done at a home network. I'm not making a lot of changes. I have a one network for the studio. I have a different network for the house. They both have their own internet connection. So as you're looking at me on the stream, I have a dedicated network connection that's going out to YouTube that you are ultimately seeing this on. But I do, everything in the house uses a different internet connection because of that, because I do these streams. And when you got a bunch of people in the family, they could be downloading all kinds of stuff. Won't affect this stream at all. So it's pretty important. Probably not that big of a question, but a kind of important one to be able to use this and have those there. Well, this brings us, I think, to the end of another Network Plus study group. We've got another hour in the after show, so I think that's a pretty good place to stop with this. Oh, quickly, before I didn't even mention it, Christopher, $10 donation in the chat room. Thank you so much. You got your Security Plus a few years ago. Congratulations. I appreciate the donation. I appreciate the support and the love. It's all motivating. It all keeps me going. We've got another study group next week. I haven't even written the questions yet. So now's the time. I have to sit down and get that going. And doing these live streams is always so much fun to get this going. Now I have to go back and find my bad cable. So now I've got things to do for the rest of the day so that we can do another study group on Wednesday of next week. Come back for that. Don't forget about our study groups that we do. You can find the calendar at professormesser.com/calendar. We've got plenty more in the rest of the month. I will always be online in the chat that's on the website, and you can always ask me questions there. Always something happening. We appreciate you joining us. Come on back next month for the next study group, or we'll see you next week for the Security Plus study group. Thanks for being here, and thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on the Network Plus study group, everyone. If I could only say study group one more time. No, that's enough. Thanks, everybody.